Hello, friends. Welcome to another fabulous episode of We Vote for Kodos, your podcast for everything surreal in American politics. This is Alex, and with me is my good friend and colleague, Caius. Caius, how is it in Colorado right now?
Not too bad. Just dealing with the wildfires, same as everybody else. Happened to look out my window at work yesterday, saw that the skies had gone, like brown to black, because something flared up nearby, so that's fun.
Usually when something turns black in the sky, it usually means it's nighttime, right?
This certainly was not nighttime.
Well, I hope there wasn't like a lot of smog that like trickled down from the sky. Like, was the air quality okay, or you couldn't go outside?
Oh, the reports have been terrible for quite a while now. The air quality was fine as far as I could tell. Wasn't like a couple of weeks ago where I walked outside and things looked okay, but you could actually smell burning in the air. So,
Oof,
not 100% certain what that was all about.
I've been there. Well, I'm in California, so I know how that is like, what that is like. So, I definitely had that experience about a month ago when we had the orange skies, when it looked like Blade Runner, or some sort of apocalyptic future. I had some sort of existential crisis when that happened. No, I didn't. So,
well, it's like I said at the time, it's like living your personal moment of Edvard Munch's The Scream.
Well, I guess I like being in some sort of like impressionist painting, so it'd be nice. It looks very surreal. But speaking of surreal, we've just had the town hall meetings with our current presidential candidates, incumbent President Trump and Democratic candidate Joe Biden.
Yes.
And so right now, I think we're going to have a special. This is going to be a special episode. We're going to play the clips from the town halls, and we're going to give our 2 cents on what they're talking about. Some of these clips we haven't actually seen before, so we didn't really, to be honest, we didn't really see all of the town hall clips. We didn't see all of the videos.
I gotta be perfectly honest. It was the town hall. I just simply didn't watch either of them yet, so a lot of this is going to be new for me.
Yeah, me too. So everyone just sit back and relax and enjoy. This is going to be our very, very first reaction political video. So let's see. So what's the first clip we're going to play, Caius?
So the first one that we've got is coming from the Joe Biden town hall. And this one is titled, Joe Biden pressed on why black voters should choose him. So I think that's very descriptive of what we can expect to see.
Okay, and this was hosted by George Stephanopoulos of ABC News, just to inform you guys. So here we go. So let's play the clip.
All right.
From Cedric Humphrey. He's a student from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, progressive Democrat.
Don't jump, Cedric. You look like you're way up there.
I'll be okay. Thank you, George. And good evening, former Vice President Biden. Many people believe that the true swing demographic in this election will be black voters under the age of 30. Not because they'll be voting for Trump, but because they won't vote at all. I myself have had this exact same conflict. So my question for you then is, besides you ain't black, what do you have to say to young black voters who see voting for you as further participation in a system that continually fails to protect them?
Well, I say, first of all, as my buddy John Lewis said, it's a sacred opportunity and right to vote. You can make a difference. If young black women and men vote, you can determine the outcome of this election. Not a joke. You can do that.
That's
And the next
probably
question is, am I
Joe's
worthy
only
of your
black
vote?
friend.
Can I earn your vote? And the answer is there's two things I think that I
Probably.
care, and I've demonstrated I care about
Maybe.
my whole career. One is, in addition to dealing with a criminal justice system to make it fair and make it more decent, we have to be able to put black Americans in a position to be able to gain wealth, generate wealth. And so you look at what that entails.
But this
It
is one of the
entails
clips
everything
I
from early
had
education.
already
That's why I'm
seen.
supporting making sure that we entitle
I-
those schools, as you know, schools
I
with
just
the
seen the
least
lead
tax
up,
base
but
to be able to
still
support
funny.
their schools.
Yeah.
And increase the funding for them from 15 to 45 billion dollars. That allows every teacher in that school to make up to $60,000. And the problem now is they're leaving the schools. They're not there. We're short about 1.5 million teachers, 1.25 million teachers. Number two, every 3.
So he's not
and
really
4-year-old
listing
will go
any
to
sort of
school,
achievements
school,
he's
not
made in the
daycare,
past
school.
for black
All the great
folks.
universities, including the one you've gone to.
Well, I mean, the
been to or
question
went to,
was about what
in
you're gonna
fact,
do.
talks about in the last 8 years what's happened. What
Basically,
happens
school
when you
funding.
let them go to school, they make up rapidly whatever shortcoming they had in terms of their education prior to that. They have not heard as many words spoken, et cetera, et cetera. What happens is that the studies show that 58% will increase by 58%.
Did I miss something?
their
What
chance
is he
of going
talking
all
about right now?
through, 12 years
I haven't
of
heard that
school
many
and
words
going through
spoken.
successfully. We'll also provide for the ability to bring in social workers and school psychologists. We have one school psychologist in America now for every 1,507 kids. It should be 1 to 500, not just in schools that are poor, but in all schools. Because we learned that, for example, drug abuse doesn't cause mental illness. Mental illness causes drug abuse, the failure to get hold of people and deal with their anxieties. In addition to that, I provide for $70 billion for HBCUs for them to be able to have the wherewithal to do what other universities can do because they don't have the kind of
But what for
foundational support they need.
HBCUs? Like,
And so that would
I'm
allow
not sure
them,
what the
for
acronym
example,
stands
like we
for.
did in our
I don't know.
administration,
I've never
President
heard that
allowed me to
before.
go down and we awarded a cybersecurity laboratory ability to compete.
Finally,
for
he's just
cybersecurity
playing off some sort of
laboratory. The
script.
federal
I mean,
government
of
spends
course, they all have to be
billions of
polished
dollars a
during
year.
these town hall
And
meetings.
universities, because they are the best kept secret of
Yeah,
where
but
most of the major inventions come out
cybersecurity.
of. And so
What?
that school now will be able to produce young black women and men who are going to go into a field of the future that's burgeoning, cybersecurity. And that's what's going to
okay.
help a great deal.
Okay,
In addition
yeah.
to that, if you're a young man about to graduate or you graduated from school and you want to own your first home, or well, it's awful hard to get the money, and depending on the background, what your economic background is, to get a down payment. So we're going to guarantee first-term home buyers a $15,000 down payment for first-term home buyers. In addition to that, what all the studies now show, and I've been arguing this for a long time, is young
$15,000 for a
black
home
entrepreneurs
buyer.
are just as successful as white entrepreneurs or
nothing.
anyone else, given a shot. But you
Yeah,
can't get the
especially
money.
in
Where do you go
California,
to get the
or
startup
even in
money?
Pennsylvania,
So what
where
President
he's,
Obama and I did, we had
think
a
this is being
program
hosted
where we took
Pennsylvania.
$1.5
Yeah.
billion, and we invested it in all the SBAs around the country, in the state SBAs, small business associations, and that generated $30 billion.
thank you for the,
came off sideline,
definition of
because
the
if you
acronym,
have a
Joe.
guarantee of $200,000 for your
I at least knew that one.
startup enterprise, young entrepreneur,
I
you're
did.
going to be able to
Yeah.
attract, if it's government money as a guarantee, you'll be able to attract another $100,000. It generated $30 billion. Well, I'm changing
What?
that program, and I'll get this done without much trouble, I believe, in the Congress, from $1.5 billion to $30 billion to $30 billion. That'll take $300 billion off the sideline and grow, because and for example, if you, in fact, and I were the same age, and we split our differences and we were the same age, and we went to the same builder to buy us each the same home, but my home was in a white neighborhood on one side of a highway, and yours is in a black neighborhood, same exact home. Your home will start off being valued
Guys, like,
29%
how long do I need to
less than
stand
my
here?
home.
2 more
Your
minutes by the
insurance
look
for that
of
home
it.
will be higher. You'll be taxed more.
That's
Well,
what's
he didn't
that's
know
what's
that.
still on the
That's what got me
thing.
involved
Two,
in
there's 2 more
politics
minutes
in
of
the
this.
first place, thing called redlining.
Well, he didn't know that.
We can change so much, that we can do so much to change the circumstances to give people a real opportunity.
Cedric, did you hear what you needed?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just saying, do you hear what you needed here?
I think so.
Okay.
Well, there's a lot more if you want. Hang on, I'll tell you more.
Okay.
No, but I really mean it. It is the
basically,
key. Look,
I
this
think
is the
I
way
got what
every
he was
other-
trying to say.
How do most, like my dad, he lost his job up in Scranton. And it took him 3 years to be able, he moved down to Delaware, to Claymont, Delaware, a little steel town, and sent us home to our grandpop to live with him. We finally got back. We lived in apartments, became 6 and 8 housing much later. It wasn't. It was just normal apartments. But it
This
took
is
us 5
audio
years
only,
to
but
be able to buy
I
a
feel
home.
so bad for this poor
Well, we
guy. You
bought
can
a
see it in his
3-bedroom
face.
home with
Like,
4
I
kids
want to
and
go
a
home.
grandpop living with us. But
Yeah,
we
like,
accumulated wealth.
you could
built
tell
up
George was
wealth.
trying
That's
to
how
like stop
middle
Joe
class
from answering
folks
any
make it.
more
They built
Yeah.
up
of the
wealth.
question.
And he was able to borrow a little against that to be able to help us get to school, those kinds of things. It's about accumulating wealth. And you're behind an 8 ball. The vast majority of people of color are behind an 8 ball. And it's the same way what's going on
Okay,
now with
Joe,
all
but
this
what are you
money
going to
that's been
do
voted.
about that?
What's
I
happening?
think everybody
You
knows
go to
that.
the bank, if you're a black businessman, and the president fired the only inspector general to oversee all this help coming from the Congress, and what happens? You go in and they say, do you have an account here? No. Do you have a credit card with this? No. Have you borrowed from us before? No. We bail these suckers out. They're not liable for any of the money, but they still won't rent it. They still won't lend it to you. We got to change that. It's about accumulating wealth.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here.
Okay.
Okay, so it ends with like a little stinger from the news, but okay, correct me if I'm wrong here. I was really trying to listen. Did he spend like the last minute of that talking about his dad being fired from a steel mill and then trying to get a loan for a business?
Well, I think he's trying to get some empathy points. So trying to say like I don't understand. I think a lot of his answers were kind of disjointed. So I wasn't sure what was what stream of consciousness he was trying to follow.
Okay, the most I could get out of that is because he seemed to keep talking about education over and over again. Mm-hmm. Honestly, even though it confused me at first, the only like real coherent thought that I got out of that was talking about the school for cybersecurity, which I think I missed this. The idea is that it's like geared towards black people. So specifically a school for cybersecurity that caters to black people. I mean, it sounds like the biggest thing he's talking about is just people need an education.
Yes, I think that's the major thing. Yeah, I wasn't quite sure. I mean, I've watched this clip before, and I'm never quite sure how he's trying to like respond. I feel like he's just listing a lot of bullet points, but there doesn't seem to be some sort of coherent flow to it. Now, I'm not sure how much Joe knows about the black community, and probably he has done a lot of research on it, but on this topic, but the answer that he provided was not coherent at all, at least from what I gathered. Like I cannot summarize for you what he just said. That's the thing.
If I was going to try to be fair here and try to dig into this as best as I could, I think basically it would boil down to we need to have better educational opportunities, and we also need to improve the ability for people to get access to loans to start businesses.
Right.
But that's me being charitable in my interpretation there. I gotta be honest, I'm legit not entirely certain what he was talking about through most of that.
I don't think well, the guy who had asked the question wasn't really even sure what he got from it either, as you can tell with his response.
Yeah, that very polite. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
I think everybody can interpret that to be exactly what he meant was. I got no idea what the hell he just said.
Yeah, I have no idea. No idea either. So, I mean, that's this kind of reminds me of the '92 election where, I don't know, like I find so Joe Biden has probably some level of emotional. He has good emotional intelligence. He has far greater emotional intelligence than I'd say than Clinton has. Clinton. I mean Hillary Clinton, not Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton is a master in emotions. But
Okay.
Hillary is not. Hillary looks more aloof than Joe, but Joe knows how to handle emotions, but Joe doesn't really have. Biden doesn't really have, I guess, the clarity. I think I'm not sure what he was trying to talk about, and I think one of the major reasons.
Can we roll back for a second here? I'm sorry. When you say emotional intelligence, what do you mean? I don't think I've heard that before.
So emotional intelligence is basically understanding, I guess, basically going into a room and understanding how everyone feels, right?
Oh, so you mean just being empathetic.
And responding in kind, and yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay.
People like George W. Bush have been told, I've heard that has good emotional intelligence. I mean, George W. Bush, right after 9/11 had a great speech in front of all the first responders. That is, he has really good emotional intelligence. He was able to, speak very well and speak to the heart. That's what a good person with emotional intelligence has. Joe Biden, I think, has some of that, but he doesn't have clarity. And in this case, nothing was very clear with his response, and I wasn't even sure. I think I'm not sure how good Joe's eyesight is, but if he had seen the facial response from the potential voter, he probably would have pivoted his answer a little bit, maybe gathered a little more information, and probably hit the right notes. But it doesn't seem he did. He just kind of listed a lot of bullet points and stuff.
I don't know, man. To me, I genuinely have to wonder, at some point, did he kind of forget what he was talking about? Because he seemed to suddenly just pivot back in when he was talking about, now houses. And, house in the white neighborhood, house in the black neighborhood.
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
now I guess you're kind of getting back on track, but you're just describing what things are. You're not saying anything about what you would do to change that.
Yeah. And then he eventually speaks as if, he's an old, codger. His very last statements are about his dad, and it sounds similar to one of those what old men say, back in my day, my dad would whip my ass because he worked in the mines, kind of like that.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is that last bit when George tried to cut him off and he kept going. It's I had no idea what the hell that last bit was about.
Yeah, I wasn't sure either. Yeah, that was what a 7 minutes about. That was a 7-minute response to a very short question.
Yeah.
I think.
And
so,
oh boy, looking at these Biden clips, that's going to be the trend.
Okay.
That's not even the longest one, actually.
Okay. What's the next clip?
Oh, well, that depends. Do we want to stick with Joe all the way through, or do we want to split this up? Do we want to take one now from Trump? How would you like to proceed?
Yeah, so let's just stick with Joe, because now that we're talking about him, I don't want to go back and forth with Trump. Now that we have Joe in our sight, let's go on with Joe. See how he goes.
Gotcha.
Does he get better?
Okay. So this one is fortunately much shorter. Although oddly, this would be the one that I would expect to be longer.
Which is longer than Trump's responses.
Yeah. But This one is Joe Biden discusses President Donald Trump's foreign policy. And this is literally more than half the time of the previous.
Okay.
So,
Cool.
okay, so here we go.
From Mark Hoffman, Center Valley, Pennsylvania, conservative, who voted for Trump in 2016.
Welcome to Pennsylvania, Mr. Vice
Good
President.
to be back home. I'm from Pennsylvania.
Yes, I know. Scranton, right?
Yep.
So, peace is breaking out all over the world. Our troops are coming home. Serbia is talking to Kosovo, and the Arabs and Israelis are talking peace, which I believe is a modern-day miracle, what's going on. Does President Trump's foreign policy deserve some credit?
A little, but not a whole lot. We find ourselves in a position where we're more isolated in the world than we've ever been. Our allies are our goal alone. America first has made America alone. You have Iran closer to having enough nuclear material to build a bomb. North Korea has more bombs and missiles available to it. We find ourselves where our NATO allies are publicly saying they can't count on us. We're in a situation as well where in the Far East we find ourselves in the Western Pacific where we're isolated as well. You have Japan and South Korea at odds with one another. China is making moves. So I would say we find ourselves less secure than we've been. I do compliment the president on the deal with Israel recently, but if you take a look, we're not very well trusted around the world. When 17 major nations in the world were asked who they trust more, who's the better leader, and the president came in behind both the international survey, both behind Putin as well as Xi. And look what Putin's doing. You have Americans, bounties on American military's heads in Afghanistan. They have more people there now, by the way, than when we left in Afghanistan. And we find ourselves in a situation where he spoke to Putin 6 times, hadn't said a word to him. And NATO is on the risk of beginning to crack because they doubt our concern, whether we're there. You see what's happening in everything from Belarus to Poland to Hungary, and the rise of totalitarian regimes in the world, and as well as this president embraces all the thugs in the world. I mean, he's best friends with the leader of North Korea, sending love letters. He doesn't take on Putin in any way, and he is just he's learned the art of the steal from the art of the deal by Xi in China. So I would respectfully suggest no, there is no plan, no coherent plan for foreign policy. We've always ruled. We've been most effective as a world leader, in my humble opinion, not just by the exercise of our power, the most powerful nation in the world, but the power of our example. That's what's led the rest of the world to follow us on almost everything. He's pulled out of almost every international organization. He gets laughed at when he goes to literally, not figuratively, when he goes to the United Nations. I mean, it's not about the president per se, it's about the nation and the lack of respect that's shown to us.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos.
I gotta catch it before George jumps in every time.
Damn it, George!
Go away, George! Just trying to listen. Well, I gotta say, that was way better than the first one, but I think that's more along the lines of if you bury the bar underground with your first answer, it's pretty easy to clear it with the second one.
Well, the first one, I mean, the pretext was that he had said you ain't black, so there wasn't really any sort of pretext for this one. So basically, they were talking about Donald Trump's foreign policy.
No, I don't know about that one. I mean, this one, the guy straight up said, the guy is talking about the recent things that have come out of Trump's foreign policy, said that was a miracle. Is there any of that you think is good, is what he asked him. So I think that's 2 for 2, where the questioners are kind of giving a slap to Joe in a way. At least that's how it comes across to me. I mean, the first guy, I think, pretty inarguably to an extent. This one I might be interpreting, but in any event, I do have to say, I think Biden's response here was pretty fair and coherent and straightforward.
I think it was far more coherent, but I think I'm kind of a stickler with foreign policy. I kind of listen to other foreign policy wonks, and I think he's definitely right. So in terms of NATO, he's definitely right. We've basically kind of I guess. I think abandon is not the word, but I feel like we kind of reneged on like certain roles with NATO. We were supposed to be the leader, and now it seems France and Germany don't want it. Well, because Trump has been very vocal about France and Germany paying their fair share for the NATO budget. That has definitely annoyed our allies in Europe.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Oh, yeah. I would 100% say that we've been adversarial.
We have been adversarial and confrontational with our allies.
I don't know if it's weird when we're talking about foreign policy. I don't know if that word's supposed to have some kind of connotation to it. I mean adversarial in like the colloquial sense of like, no, we're not putting a sword to you, but it's like fucking hell, guys, pay your bar tab. Just being like we're being insistent about it. Dickish, I guess is fair to say.
Yeah, we're not enemies with France and Germany. We still hold the allegiance. We still adhere to it. It's just that he's right. Biden is right about the current perception of Europe, of Trump, from Europe, is that of like a clown and one that of a bully. And Germany and France, they all badmouth Trump, or at least that's what I've heard. There is definitely a level of abhorrence to a Trump presidency in those countries. Now,
yeah, but what I would be curious about is, does that translate to the people who actually live in those countries, or is that coming from Macron and Merkel?
Yeah, no, it'd be the government officials. So I'm not sure.
That's the thing, because then it doesn't matter, because we've got the exact same thing in this country. If you're just talking about like anybody in the Democratic stratum.
Right, that's true. And, there are definitely some allies within France. You have the Front National. I mean, it has had a very shady background with it being racist, and being anti-Semitic. I mean, now it's being much more moderate with its tone and rhetoric, being led by Marine Le Pen. And Marine Le Pen is a big supporter of Trump. And then you have more nationalist parties within Germany trying to take over. And then, but the thing is that Western Europe is basically a small portion of our foreign policy. It is a major part, but
yeah,
just a few allies.
One thing
so like one of the things that he did talk about was about Japan and South Korea. From what I've heard, there has been no better time to being aligned with Japan and South Korea than it is now. Trump has been very vocal about China, and Japan and South Korea has actually appealed to them, and they actually 100% support Trump's policy towards China.
I mean, that would make a lot of sense to me. And in terms of if he's talking about, I guess you could say, rough relations between Japan and Korea. I mean, it's been that way for over 1,000 years. Long before the countries were modern. I mean, for God's sakes, have you ever happened to be online and encountered a Japanese shit poster and a Korean shit poster in the same place? Oh, fireworks every time. It is always fun to watch.
Oh, that's That sounds much more violent than a I guess a Green Bay Packer in New England football match or something like that.
Oh yeah, but I mean that's the thing is like if anybody hasn't seen it before, that's a pretty good analogy to it. Is it's people rooting for their team and going for blood.
No, yeah,
Verbally. So I don't know when you're talking about situation with Japan and Korea being upset with each other. Really, what are we talking about here? I think I believe you in terms of like on the bigger picture stuff. Yeah, they're all together and it's us against China kind of deal. If you're talking about people on the ground, I don't think that's anything new.
I think basically, simply, I think the international leaders who hate Trump are the ones who are part of the establishment and of the center left, and the people who do support Trump, like places in like Hungary, I believe, I guess Turkey, Saudi Arabia, those are people of like the center right, if not the far right. Who actually do respect Trump and, well, arguably though, and we do have like a strong alliance with them, regardless of what they say behind his back. We still have a good alliance with Saudi Arabia right now, and I think we're trying to foster more relationships with Eastern Europe, because of Putin.
Yeah. Well, and there's also some of the things that he mentioned in there, in particular with Eastern Europe. Biden had mentioned Belarus.
Yes.
And correct me if I'm wrong, that was kind of in conjunction with talking about NATO. And I guess I'm really confused about that. What would we as NATO, what are we supposed to do about Belarus? For anybody who doesn't know, they're dealing with an insane post-election situation. It really looks like the election was just completely outright stolen by a guy who's just going to be propping himself up as a dictator, and the people are not having it. It's chaos out there, from what I've been able to tell. But I mean, like that comes down to the question. It's like, okay, but what does that have to do with NATO? I mean, are you saying you want us to go in and invade? I don't think this is the kind of situation for that.
Yeah, so if Belarus is imploding, that basically poses no risk to NATO. That actually poses far more of a risk to Russia than it does to NATO. I'm sure that if there is a civil war God forbid there's a civil war in Belarus. But if that does happen, of course, there's definitely going to be some sort of refugee crisis. But the current situation isn't as bad as the Syrian civil war. And the thing is, the thing about Trump is that he's been probably the most laissez-faire president, in quite a while. He's been the least interventionist compared to Obama and Bush, and definitely compared to Bush. Definitely compared to Bush. And he has been, he's been strictly he's been the most isolationist president since, I'd say, probably Hoover. I don't know, maybe Hoover.
Boy, that one, I don't know. I'd have to really look into it, but I wouldn't be surprised. That sounds like that would be about right. So.
Let's see. Let's go a little
certainly
bit
in the
of a
modern
segue
era.
here.
I mean, no question about it.
In the modern era, yeah. Actually, this is kind of a good trivia question. Who has been the least interventionist president in quite a while? We have Obama, you had Libya, you had Syria. And then
I gotta say,
Tunisia.
I gotta say, if I was gonna just try to guess this, and I'm sure somebody who's actually a really good historian would be able to correct me and point out that I'm wrong about this because of A, B, and C. But if I had to just take a random stab at it, I think I'd say Abraham Lincoln, because it's kind of hard to worry about the rest of the world when your own country is at war.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So. I guess so. So it probably takes a civil war to create a isolationist president.
I guess the problem is like if are we talking about like willingly isolationist or isolationist due to like actual actions and whatnot? Because I I honestly don't know too much about the Lincoln presidency outside of what everybody knows, but I'm just going to guess there wasn't a whole hell of a lot necessarily being done with a focus towards outside the United States during those years.
Yeah, at that time, I think his hands were a bit full. Lincoln was definitely too preoccupied with something he had to do. So
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, things keeping him busy.
Okay.
But
Wait,
the only other thing I would say is like, it is just funny to me, Biden bringing up Putin over and over again. I mean, Ukraine was invaded under Biden's watch. I mean, Obama's watch, but Biden was there.
Yes,
I mean, let's not forget that. And nobody did a damn thing about that. So.
And also Biden, Biden also was very apprehensive about going after Osama bin Laden.
Oh, he flat out said, "Don't do it."
Yeah. So I don't know. Like for me, if Biden becomes president, and no, we're voting for Kodos. Let's get that straight. But if Biden were president, I would think he'd be like a bit of a he would get taken advantage of internationally. I think he seems a little too soft.
I mean, here's the thing: is like, let's be perfectly honest here. I still don't believe anybody's actually voting for Biden, whether they realize it or not. You're voting for Kamala Harris.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Oh, wow.
Come on, you know what I'm talking about.
I know. I was being completely sarcastic.
I know. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Joe Biden is my grandfather. My grandfather has dementia. It's not a meme to me, it's just sad.
Yeah, I mean, this guy is Biden's 76? 70. How old is he now?
It's a good question. I mean, I don't know if age matters too much into it. I think you can start getting dementia even in like your 60s or something. I guess he's 77 years old is what comes up.
Oh, wow. And
yeah, November 20th, 1942 he was born.
Holy shit. So he's going to be 78 when he gets inaugurated? If he does get inaugurated.
Oh, yeah. Because, his birthday will have long since passed by the time he would get in there in January, so.
So, apparently, did you hear about... Okay, so this is a bit off topic, but did you hear about Pelosi trying to introduce an amendment that would allow Congress to oust the president if the person is mentally unstable?
Yes, but only in a very vague term. So I kind of just I didn't really look into it much further.
So initially I thought, well, this is probably a ploy by Pelosi to try to oust Trump and saying that he's mentally unstable. But my friend had said this, and I thought this was...
I think I'm with your friend because my mind went the opposite direction, but go ahead.
Yeah, it was with, like, if Biden became president, then the amendment would be a way for Congress to oust Biden and put Kamala Harris into power.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
What? Oh, yeah. Jeez. So I was like, oh, man. But yeah.
I mean, that would be immediately my first thought towards it, is in terms of what they would be wanting to do with that. Well, wait, so this was actually real, because when I say I didn't really look into it too much, at first I was thinking like this might be one of those just like internet rumor things, like I don't want to pursue like just a joke, you know?
No, this is let me look this up. 25th Amendment, Pelosi. Yeah, I mean it's even on CNN, and at 25th Amendment, Pelosi pushes new bill to determine whether a president is capable of serving.
Oh shit!
That's the headline. This, I mean,
Oh wow,
like,
no, this is 100% true. Yeah, no, I had only seen vague stuff about that. Okay, damn.
I mean, this is a complete and utter this would be a complete and utter overhaul of our Constitution. For a very long time, our president has always been separate. Like, there has always been a sort of separation of powers, right? Of the three branches: the legislative and the executive, and then the judicial. Where in places like the UK, where where their head of government is basically the leader of the legislature. No, the legislature has the ability to oust the head of government and place someone else new. To have this amendment be introduced in the United States would be basically a complete it would cause a complete travesty of our Constitution, because the legislature was never supposed to be it wasn't supposed to be the power that could easily oust the executive office, right? So
I mean, it's an absolute weakening of the three separate branches principle.
Yes. So merely, basically, this would allow the House of Representatives be like the House of Commons in the UK, and basically provide a vote of no confidence to the president.
Yeah.
But we already have something in place, and that's called impeachment. And this is basically, this is basically a way for them to, basically circumvent the impeachment route and go towards just a mere majority vote as opposed to a supermajority.
Yeah. No, this would be insane. I mean, do they not immediately see how this could be abused in a circumstance in the future if the tables flip?
See, this is one of the main problems that I have with the Democratic Party. They basically took out the filibuster in the Senate. That doesn't happen anymore.
No, they killed it because they
killed it.
Had problems with the Republicans using it against them during the Obama administration. And, well, son of a bitch, now don't you really wish that you had that during the Trump administration? You didn't think about this. They're short-term thinkers. As much as I do empathize or sympathize with their policies for the working class at times, they're short-term thinkers. So, I mean, astoundingly short-term. You really think that the filibuster decision really would have made them take a step back and pause and think things through?
No.
But they're just constantly coming up with ideas where anybody can take a look at it and in half a second realize, hang on a minute, this is going to be terrible for you when the tables inevitably flip like they always do.
Well, I don't know about you, but I remember when Obama had been elected, and then, the Democrats got a majority in the House of Representatives in 2008, as well as in the Senate. There seemed to be some sort of end of history kind of feeling, right? This has been the end goal of America. We have reached this point. Republicans will forevermore be the minority party, and we won't need to listen to them ever again. We'll always be in the majority. At that time, at least for me, that kind of made sense. And at that point, I think, the Democrats were thinking, well, we don't need to filibuster anymore because, we'll always be in power. But 2010 happened. I don't know when they overturned the filibuster, but 2010 happened, and they got voted out of the Senate.
Yeah. Well, because turns out a lot of people realize, hey, you know what? We gave you complete power, and we don't like what you're doing.
Yep. Exactly.
I mean, the funny thing about it is what you're describing is that's like communist thinking. That's that whole idea of like, the glorious 1,000-year reign of everything. It's all done. We're all finished. Now it's just all move forward to the glorious workers' future. And it's like,
exactly,
no, that's not what this fucking country is. You guys are going to be in there for a little while until people get tired of your shit, vote in the other people just long enough for them to get tired of their shit and vote you back in. That's how this country works.
Well, yeah, this country works, like, this country has always, served as a platform for competition, right? A competition of businesses, a competition of ideas, a competition of politicians. And if you feel that there should only be like one party ruling the United States, then that's basically, counterintuitive to what, what the United States stands for.
Well,
really,
it's utterly
right?
and absolutely antithetical to American ideology because it's just straight up totalitarianism.
Right.
I mean, pick your poison. It's communism, it's fascism. It doesn't matter in terms of like little edge cases here. It's just straight up totalitarianism. That's all it is.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of getting a taste of that here in California. So I recently got my ballot.
Mm-hmm.
I recently got my ballot, and so I actually have it right now. So I'm pulling it up. So for one of my districts, well, actually, I have to vote for a member of the state assembly for the California State Assembly.
Mm-hmm.
Here are my two choices: Bill Quirk of the Democratic Party, so he's the current incumbent,
Mm-hmm.
and Alexis Villalobos of the Democratic Party.
Oh, yeah.
And there's no third choice. They're both Democrats. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, what? And so what's even kind of funny is I even looked at the voter guide as well. So I wanted to know who this Alexis Villalobos was. So I looked at the voter guide, saw that Bill Quirk was on it, so I gave a description. Here's what Bill Quirk is and what he has done as assembly as a state assembly member of California. The next right next to his name, there was no description of Alexis at all. There was nothing.
Really?
And I was
wait. This is like the Blue Book, right?
Yeah. So this is like the Blue Book. So it gives a description
there's
of
supposed
all
to be everything
candidates.
in there.
No, there's no description of Alexis Villalobos.
Oh,
No.
wait. No, if I remember correctly, it's been a long time since I lived in California, but they have to pay for those things, don't they? Like, they have to pay per word that goes in there, I think.
Well, at least have a sentence. Jesus. Like,
I mean, well, no, the problem is like there's no sentence because they're really controlling it because, yeah, if those assholes make you pay for it, they don't want you to know what the actual thing is. Let me see here. California voter Blue Book payment. I'm just trying to make sure like I actually got this right because I swear that's the case. That you have to pay for the information that's in there.
Oh, I have no idea. But to me, the whole race is a complete and utter farce. I think they just added this Alexis guy just to look like it's an actual two-way race, but it really isn't.
Yeah, sorry. I guess I'm deviating away from what your point was. It's like, yeah, what is the point if it's two Democrats on there? Like maybe they differ on a couple of minor little things, but what kind of actual policy changes are you getting between them? I mean, ultimately, they're both going to have to be towing the same California Democrat Party line.
Yeah, exactly. And what's kind of funny is that probably that the turnover rate in the California Assembly is probably far lower than that of the National People's Congress of China. People, it's really hard to vote out an incumbent in California. I mean, you have Feinstein, who's been serving since like the 1980s in the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and now that we have this primary, like, I forget, it's this primary, like, two-way primary voter scheme where the people who have the most votes in the primaries gets to be on the ballot regardless of political party. Well, I mean, it's just kind of crazy. I don't know. Well, I'm voting for Kodos anyway, so I don't care.
Yeah. Fortunately, Kodos gets around. He's in every election.
Yes. He spins and twirls and twirls and twirls towards freedom. I think that was Kodos. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure, but they both look the same to me. Call me racist, but they both look the same to me.
I understand.
Okay. So what's our next video, Caius? What's our next video here for Joe?
So for the next one with Joe, we've got Joe Biden answers how he would have handled the pandemic.
Okay. This is a very relevant topic. Let's hear him out. See what he says.
Here we go.
Nicholas Fedden, he's from Jenkintown, Pennsylvania. That's close to here in Philadelphia.
No, well.
You're a Democrat.
I am a Democrat. Thank you, George. Mr. Vice President, every day my wife and I are in disbelief at the lack of coordinated federal action on COVID-19. We know that your administration would follow the science. My question for you is two parts. First, looking backwards to when this country first became aware of COVID-19, what would following the science have meant in terms of actual policy? And then, looking forward, what would your administration do in terms of following the science with real concrete policies that haven't been done by the current administration?
Well, first of all, going back, the fact is that the president was informed how dangerous this virus was. And all the way back at the beginning of February, I argued that we should be keeping people in China. And we had set up in our administration a pandemic office within the White House. There were 44 people on the ground. I suggested we should be seeking, and I didn't hold public office. I was a former vice president. I suggested we, in fact, ask to have access to the source of the problem. And to the best of our knowledge, Trump never pushed that. All those 44 people came home, never got replaced. In addition to that, I pointed out that I thought in February, I did a piece for USA Today saying this is a serious problem. Trump denied it. He said it wasn't. We later learned that he knew full well how serious it was when he did an interview with Bob Woodward. And at the time, he said he didn't tell anybody because he was afraid Americans would panic. Americans don't panic. He panicked. He didn't say a word to anybody. Then I wrote a piece in March about what I thought we should be doing to take hold of this, using there's an act that's passed a long time ago that allows the president to go into a business and say, stop making this and start making that. And it took a long time for him to even institute that, to get ventilators and so on. And so the point was he missed enormous opportunities and kept saying things that weren't true. It's going to go away by Easter. Don't worry about it. It's going to all, when the summer comes, it's all going to go away like a miracle. He's still saying those things.
Before you go to the future, can I follow up on looking backward just a little bit? You did have an op-ed in January where you warned to the seriousness of the pandemic, but there's no record of you calling for social distancing, limited social gatherings, mandatory masks.
Not back then.
In January, February.
No, in January, February. No, that's correct. There wasn't. That came at the end of March, and then I laid out a detailed plan relative to school openings in June and July. And I talked about, by that time, the science was becoming clearer and clearer of how this was spreading so rapidly. But the president kept denying that. If you notice, from March on, I stopped doing big meetings. I started wearing masks. So it was at a time when the science was saying, and his key people, Dr. Fauci, were saying you should be taking these precautions. So what we should be doing now, there should be a national standard instead of leaving this up. Remember what the president said to the governors. Well, they're on their own. That's not my responsibility. The governors can do what they need to do, not my responsibility. It is a presidential responsibility to lead. And he didn't do that. He didn't talk about what needed to be done because he kept worrying, in my view, about the stock market. He worried if he talked about how bad this could be unless we took these precautionary actions, then in fact the market would go down. And his barometer of success in the economy is the market. Thirdly, what we didn't do is the president had an opportunity to open and allow schools and businesses to stay open if they got the kind of help they needed. So the Congress passed a couple $1 trillion worth of help. And what happened was most of that money, significant portion of that money, went to the very wealthiest corporations in the country, didn't get to the mom and pop stores. So you had 1 in 5, 1 in 6 minority businesses closing, many of them permanently, people being laid off. And then what happened was when the first tranche of the first round of money for unemployment, enhanced unemployment, went by, he didn't do anything. He didn't do anything. And to the best of my knowledge, and I mean this sincerely, I can't think, I've been around for a lot of presidents, and you know a lot of presidents in a crisis. I don't ever remember one never calling the House and Senate, Republicans, Democrats together.
Let's look forward a little bit. You said that you would lock down the economy only if the scientists said it was necessary.
Well, by the way, that wasn't the context here. They said, would I lock down the economy if science said so? I said I'd follow science. But I don't think there's a need to lock down.
But I want to press you on that point.
Sure.
You've been in the Oval Office for 8 years with President Obama. He would always say that only the hard to solve problems get to his desk. What is most likely to happen is the scientists will disagree. The scientists will disagree with the economists. So the question is, how are you going to decide this? Who are you going to listen to? And how can you contain the pandemic without crushing the economy?
Well, you can contain the pandemic by being rational and not trust the economy. For example, I laid out a plan how you can open businesses. You can open businesses and schools if, in fact, you provide them the guidance that they need as well as the money to be able to do it. What's happening now is we know, for example, if you can open a business and you could have a sign on the door saying safe to come in, that's why people aren't going anyway even when they're open, and say because you have social distancing, you have plastic barriers when you go to the cashier, you have separators between the booths, you don't have large crowds, you reduce the size, the number of people you can have in the restaurant, you make sure there's testing. That's a really critical piece that he didn't do, testing and tracing, and you make sure that people are equipped, going to schools. You know, we initially said, the government initially said they're going to provide masks for every student and every teacher. Then they said, no. FEMA said, the president or whomever said, no, that's not a national emergency. Not a national emergency. We need more teachers in our schools to be able to open smaller pods. We need ventilation systems changed. There's a lot of things we know now. And I laid them out in some detail. Now, again, when I say I laid them out, I'm not an office holder. I'm running for office. It's not like I'm still vice president or I was a United States senator pushing this. So I don't want to say I. But we did lay out exactly what needed to be done. And take a look. We make up 4% of the world's population. We have 20% of the world's deaths. We're in a situation where we have 210,000+ people dead. And what's he doing? Nothing. He's still not wearing masks and so on.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thank you.
Always with George.
David George. Okay. I think that was a pretty reasonable answer.
I got a lot of points to it. First off, with the starting thing about this, it took me a minute to understand what he was talking about at the very beginning there. At first he was talking about, like, I thought we should keep people isolated in China. And my first immediate thing was, like, one, Joe, you were the one who called Trump a xenophobic racist for creating the flight ban to China. So that's a lie. But I think I understand what he's talking about. He was referring specifically to, and I'm trying to remember the exact thing here, but I believe it was our embassy workers in China. Specifically, that's what he meant by like the 40 people and keeping them isolated in China. And I got a whole problem with that. Is like, okay, if we're talking American citizens, you can't keep them out of America. That's just fundamentally wrong by my standard. I don't care what the circumstances are.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody can come back and tell me like, well, it's extraordinary situations if they're plague carriers and whatnot. I would still say I don't care. You can't keep Americans out of America. That's just, you can't do that. There should never be allowed to be a circumstance where that is considered to be an acceptable idea.
They have a constitutional right to return home.
Yes.
You're saying.
Yeah. And I felt like I felt like we did a pretty good job about that, having them in isolated flights back, and then we kept them quarantined in military bases before allowing them to go back home.
I think that's a fair point.
So that would be a big problem that I have with this statement. Now, if I'm remembering correctly, he didn't say this, but I'm trying to remember it, and I believe that some of those people, yes, they were in the quarantine, but they were still infectious. And so it did spread from a couple of those people who came back. But I still fundamentally disagree with the whole idea of like Americans you got to keep out of America for any situation. Like just no, full stop. I refuse to believe that there's ever a circumstance where that should ever be tolerated.
No, I think that's a very valid argument there. The whole point of American rights is that Americans have a right to go home. We shouldn't ban Americans from ever returning home just because of a disease. And
yeah.
we have.
Don't get me wrong here. Never returning home. I'm pretty sure Joe wasn't even saying that. But I refuse to believe that there's an idea that, okay, well, you need to stay out until things calm down in like however many years. Like, no, absolutely not. When you decide that you want to come home, that's when you get to come home. We're not going to put a moratorium on your ability to, just see your family,
we don't want to do that. I mean, we already have that experience now with the whole lockdowns and stuff.
Oh yeah.
So,
it's. Yeah, we do, we do have to admit that by and large, that is mostly voluntary. Sure. The moratorium on seeing your families and whatnot. It is largely voluntary. Now, there have been a couple of horror stories related to like people dying in hospitals. I can't speak to that because I don't know it directly, and I haven't seen it. I haven't seen the proof of that one way or the other. I'm talking about like those horror stories of people like, okay, our grandparents got sick, they're dying in the hospital, but we're not allowed to even go and see them to say goodbye for something like that. I've heard that that's happening. I can believe that that's happening, but I haven't seen the direct proof situation of that. If it has happened in any one case, it's wrong as far as I'm concerned. But that's a hard and fast principle that I will stick to. And yeah, no, if somebody can absolutely tell me that I'm wrong on that, but this is one where I'm just looking at it as basically a general ethical principle. It's like I don't care about the consequences of this necessarily. This is a standard that we should just simply have.
Yes.
Americans should not be separated from their family by the American government.
Correct.
Because, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I look at it as being utterly analogous 100%. And equal to, like, the internment of Japanese during World War II.
You're right.
I'm pretty sure people are going to say, like, oh, that's a ridiculous comparison. No, I really don't see a difference. I really don't,
Mm-hmm.
Because we're talking about extraordinary times calling for extraordinary measures, and we're going to do something to isolate people based off of those circumstances. Right. Then, if that's the principle here, really, truly tell me, what is the difference between the Japanese internment camps to try to make sure that they weren't saboteurs and spies for the Japanese Empire during the biggest global conflict the world had ever seen, versus right now with a global pandemic, and we don't want people who are potentially carriers spreading the disease around places.
Right.
It's both based off of entirely rational and entirely legitimate fears.
Right.
And we should not allow fears to dictate our denial of basic rights to American citizens.
Rights that are unconditional.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, that was a longer tangent, but that one stuck in my craw the whole time I was listening to him.
No, that's a valid tangent. I think what I got from Biden was, basically it was basically it was basically a approach of Trump. Is that the word I'm looking for?
Reproach. Reproach of Trump.
Okay, I'm too drunk right now.
You kind of need to be, so that's fair.
Okay, so no, I think the Trump administration, he's right. There was a lot of bungling involved with the response to COVID in early 2020. We had no idea of how bad it was, and what responses we should take, because this was basically the first pandemic that this country has faced since the Spanish flu, really. H1N1, as bad as it wasn't as large as this.
Frankly, H1N1 didn't even infect as many people throughout the entirety of its existence as COVID did within the first couple of months.
So and
when I say first couple of months, I'm talking the Chinese perspective from going in back to late November of last year. So
right. I think Trump, Biden's right that there is some blame that needs to be passed around, and I think the Trump administration, there is definitely some blame there, but I don't think the Trump administration was like the only thing to blame. I'm kind of on the fence about Trump knowing how bad it was and how much he had informed the public. And Biden was definitely talking about that in the town hall. And I think Trump is at fault when it comes to that.
In what part? Are you talking about specifically when he's saying that Trump knew and was withholding the scope of the information?
Yeah, I think that is definitely. I think that's definitely something to bring up.
It's certainly something to bring up, absolutely.
But I don't
personally. I just fundamentally disagree with his assessment that Americans don't panic. They would be fine if you told them the real situation. It's like, no, fucking look at the entire year that we've had so far. No, Americans panic.
Americans
just look at all the rioting that we've had based off of complete and utter nonsense.
Well, not to mention all the scarcity of toilet paper.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
We had. Or
that's the perfect point, actually. Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
So don't tell me that Americans don't panic. We've proven we panic.
Well, this is the first pandemic we've had in 100 years. Absolutely, like the worst crisis we've had since World War II, as you rightly compared to.
Yeah.
So, I think it's kind of complicated. The situation is kind of complicated, and Trump is to blame on some things, but everyone's pretty ignorant of this whole of this situation and how to respond to it too. We didn't really have a playbook for this, and it was never really we never really exercised any sort of plans for this. So it's hard. Hopefully once the zombie apocalypse happens, we'll be completely ready for it and prepared. But right now, I mean, this is kind of a very impromptu. We have impromptu responses basically, and I think 200,000 dead. I mean, I think so. I guess one of my main gripes about statistical comparisons is that no country is really the same. You can't really compare the United States to, say, like an Italy or Spain.
No,
Spain
because I mean,
is more like Texas or like California.
Dude, it
like,
doesn't
in
even
terms of
compare to
population.
Texas. No, Spain
Yeah.
and Italy, I think, are much more analogous to like a Vermont or a New Hampshire.
Well, they're not that small. Come on, give them.
I mean,
give
not
them
in terms of like size and everything, but I'm looking it up here. Italy has a total population of 60 million people. Okay.
Well, I mean, that's greater than the population of Texas, though. Texas only has like about 28, I believe.
Well, okay. So honestly, it's individually, it's that's more people than any individual state. So I will grant you that, because California is the largest at 39 million, and Texas is the second largest at 28 million. So,
but still,
granted, I will grant you that. But of course, we do have to realize that if we're talking about like with numbers and everything, with the statistical analysis, I mean, you've got 60 million people in Italy versus, God, it's been about 330 million for a long time. I don't really know what the latest 2020 census stuff is saying in terms of our population. We must be up to like 340 million people at least in the
yeah,
country,
I think you're right. So it's like maybe around like maybe 350 or something like that.
Well, let me double check this here. U.S. population 2020.
331. Wow.
Yeah, 331. Really? So it hasn't changed all that much. Okay. Well.
I mean,
You know what? States. No, that actually, I suppose, makes sense. That's in line with what people have been estimating, 330. Because it was actually 308 million, so everybody just rounded down as of the 2010 census. That's what it was.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, like, I think I don't want to sound cold about the deaths. Like, just one American death is too much. We shouldn't have any more deaths from COVID. But I think we have to look within the context of the current situation to understand the stats. And for one thing, so
here's something I want to point out. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
We've lost about 200,000 people to COVID so far, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. I do want to point this out. In a rough average, we lose about 38,000 people to traffic fatalities a year.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. So, yeah, significantly less, but pretty analogous.
Yeah.
I think that needs to be kind of put into perspective here. In terms of our overall population, we're not too bad, especially considering like the original estimates when they're talking about the science. I was really following this stuff very closely, like long before it got into shutdown mode. I was interested in this shit back from February, okay? Like, I was following the China stuff. There was a lot of stuff coming out from scientists where we were estimating, like, this thing could just be an insane wildfire situation. We could be looking at millions of deaths in individual countries. We could be looking at millions upon millions dead in the United States. Okay, that was the science back at the beginning.
Right. You're absolutely right about it. And this could have, I mean, remember Gavin Newsom. So Gavin Newsom in, I think, May or April, March or something like that, had warned that there would be like close to 200,000 people dying in California alone in the next couple of months.
I'd have to see the quote. I wouldn't be surprised if Gavin Newsom said that. So,
or something like that. And so he had, I mean, if that is the case, then we have basically averted a huge bullet. And knowing how bad this COVID-19 is, I mean, 200,000, don't want to take it lightly, but it is far better than millions of people dying.
Yeah. Although, granted, let's be perfectly honest here. I would be the first to say that it basically boils down to the fact that while the disease is incredibly infectious, it's not quite as lethal as we all thought it was going to be. So let's not really have any illusions here. We're not down we're not down at a low number because of anything that anybody in the government has done. We just got fucking lucky, is all.
Right. I mean, look, sure, we have like one of the highest deaths per million. Like the thing is that unfortunately we do have a lot of health complications. A lot of Americans have a lot of health conditions, right?
Oh God, yeah.
Preconditions.
Look, everybody's been saying for years,
that
Americans are
effect.
fat as shit, and so that comes with it a lot of things, the secondary stuff, your diabetes, your heart disease, and that's going to affect you when you get something like this.
That creates a multiplier effect when you put COVID into the situation. I mean, just recently you had Chris Christie, I guess went to ICU because he had COVID, and Chris Christie is no like Tom Brady, like he is not fit. I mean, like, look, this guy, like Chris Christie is like what, like 300 pounds or something like that. He jokes that he's fat. He is not very healthy at all, and I don't want to diss Chris Christie, but it's no surprise that he had very serious symptoms from COVID-19.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But I just want to read some of the stats here. So apparently the current deaths per million from COVID-19, and I also want to point out that the countries who do count the stats for the deaths of COVID count them differently. So a lot of these stats are not very consistent, I'd say.
Well, that's been a real big problem. Is there's even right now in this country there's a lot of argumentation over like should the death toll even necessarily be that high, because there's a lot of questioning about what gets counted as a death from COVID. Specifically because obviously when government funding comes into play, things get a little wacky. Somebody could be possibly exposed to it and they die of something undeniably unrelated, like a motorcycle accident. Yeah, but we're going to call that a COVID death because that gets us funding.
Well, are you sure that like a huge like coronavirus was chasing after the motorcyclist? Like a gang of COVID-19.
I can't prove that didn't happen, so I suppose you're right. But
COVID's angels, like a motorcycle gang, just went after the motorcyclists. Like, we're gonna get you. We're from China.
They got that. Their logo is that Animu girl with the bat wings that we've all seen.
Okay. Well,
I want to see that biker gang in the future. I'm not even kidding.
Okay. The COVID-19s are, yeah. Well, what were we saying? I don't know.
Well, we were talking about the stats of
about the stats. Right?
Yeah, the stats of the fatalities. That you were specifically mentioning how every country is recording its stats differently. So the problem is, in many ways, there's no consistent standard in terms of calculating these numbers in the first place.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to compare one country to another in any regard.
Exactly. And we also compared the states to, like, our states in the United States are pretty much similar to countries.
Yes.
And each state has responded differently and distinctly from each other in terms of COVID-19, right? Like, you have, like, a California, which has decided to do 100% lockdown, or New York. And then you have places like Texas and Florida who have decided, well, let's see what happens if we just open up slightly or just open up at 50%.
Yeah.
Like, we don't want to deprive people of work and socializing just so we have a pandemic. We want people to be able to hang out with each other, because if we are in a crisis, then at least we'll have each other and be able to talk. But I don't know. The responses are kind of arguable, and so we've had like very we've had disparities in terms of number of cases within each state, cases per capita, and the number of deaths. I mean, it's kind of a mess. So I think like having a number that summarizes the whole situation for America doesn't really justify, I guess, like an argument, really. Like each state has responded differently, really.
Yeah.
And Trump has allowed the executives, the governors within the state, to do whatever they need to respond to the pandemic.
Which is the thing, in my personal opinion, I would say that that's one of the better responses that he could have given. Yeah, I genuinely do think that. It's not a matter of like states' rights or anything. I think it's a matter of the federal government is incapable of dictating policy that is going to perfectly match what each state is doing, because each state is doing something differently. And as proof of that, I will use my own state as an example in terms of the recent things that are going on in terms of the national mail-in voting. I live in Colorado, and we have had mail-in voting for as long as I've been here. That's just how it works. You get your ballot in the mail, you fill it out, and you either drop it off at a polling place or you mail it back in. And I'm sure there's probably a lot of people out there who have gotten like a notice from the U.S. Postal Service with instructions on how to do mail-in voting. That was actually a huge scandal here in Colorado when people started getting those from the U.S. Postal Service, because it is 100% factually inaccurate to the way that voting works in this state. I mean, to the extent that we were legitimately looking at this as an absolute chargeable case of voter fraud, because it's just fundamentally wrong. You don't have to apply for a ballot in Colorado. If you register to vote, with an address, and that means that's where your ballot goes. You don't have to request a ballot, you just get it,
Right.
And there's no special circumstances for like turning it in or anything. It's just a matter of, look, you turn it in at the polling place, or you make sure that it's posted on at least election day. Even if it goes through the mail and it takes like 2 weeks, it's still going to be counted, So like everything that was being said was wrong, and that's why I'm pointing it out, is like there can't possibly be a coordinated federal response to anything that's going to cover the whole nation accurately. Because like you're saying, every state is different.
Right.
It really should be incumbent on the governors to try to dictate policy for their own state, because they're the ones who would be capable of understanding what is appropriate for their state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think even the CDC, I'm not sure if the CDC it was the one that they came out with this statement, but I think someone had said, at least within the federal government, that the onus should be on the states as to how to respond, because each state has a different situation, right?
Yeah.
You have places like Louisiana, which had a Mardi Gras, and it had to face a complete and utter surge of cases and deaths of COVID-19, and so they had to respond in kind, like Louisiana, the governor and its politicians had to respond, sufficiently to that situation. Whereas you have places like, I guess, Nebraska, which never really had like a major event that would cause a surge in COVID-19. Well, they don't have any.
And an example of that is, if I'm not mistaken, like North Dakota is an example where I don't think they ever had any kind of lockdown. I think it was just largely business as usual, because they just pointed out, like, basically everything in the state is rural. We don't actually have cities like other areas have them. And nobody's coming into North Dakota if travel is largely shut down, so who cares?
What is in North Dakota?
Yeah, I know. Exactly.
Okay. Oh, man.
But I mean, like, that's to your point about, like, the differences there. Like you said, New Orleans, a huge international destination because of Mardi Gras, a huge internationally known event. People travel from all over the world to come see it. You got to have a huge response. North Dakota, nobody goes to North Dakota for anything.
They get, like, bootleg Mount Rushmore in North Dakota.
Oh, that's right. Mount Rushmore's in North Dakota. I forgot about that.
Bootleg Mount Rushmore. Mount Rushmore is actually in South Dakota. But there's a bootleg
that's right. No, that's why North Dakota would be it. No, then it is true. Nobody goes to North Dakota for anything.
No one goes to North Dakota. No one. Well, I mean, there was the fracking revolution. There was a surge in fracking jobs in North Dakota. But that's pretty much it. Like, I don't know what, like, I know the capital of North Dakota is Bismarck, but I don't know what you would see there.
Yeah. And I mean, hey, this is not me pissing on North Dakota. To be perfectly honest, I desperately wish I lived there at this point.
No, well, I would love to visit all 50 states, so North Dakota is definitely on my list. But suggest, as the name of this capital like suggests, like, I'm assuming there's probably like the body of Otto von Bismarck, like, somewhere, or like a toenail of Otto von Bismarck somewhere. I have no idea.
Really?
No, I have no idea. I'm just making that shit up. I am just making that shit up right now. I have no idea. Bismarck, North Dakota.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at it, and it's true that it is actually named after Otto von Bismarck, so that's something.
Well, apparently there's a lot of, like, German or Americans who are descendant from German immigrants in North Dakota, maybe. What's there to see? Bismarck landmarks. What's there to see? Well, okay. Well, I mean, this is we're totally off the point right now. So, Dakota Zoo. I'm sorry, there really isn't anything to see in North Dakota. I really want to defend North Dakotans, but I'm sorry.
Dude, I would defend it. It's like just nice and quiet and rural, and you don't have to put up with the bullshit going on anywhere else. They're probably just all... Basically, it looks like to me, North Dakota is the bunker of the United States. They just bunkered down, and it's all business as usual, and nothing ever changed for them. That's what it seems like.
Wait a minute. Trump's our president now?
I assume they get news, obviously.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know what there is to do in North Dakota. You got like Winnipeg, Manitoba in the north, and then you got like Regina.
Regina. Who doesn't want to go there?
Yeah, Regina in Saskatchewan. Those are much more major cities than Bismarck. And then you have like just a couple hundred of miles like east is Minneapolis. So I don't know. I would love to visit North Dakota. Come on, North Dakotans, come on. We'll give you some love, like.
Dude, I've been giving love the whole time. Yeah, no.
I'm sorry. You're making me sound like the bad guy now. I'm like, come on. Okay, great. Okay, well, let's move on. Like, what's next? What's the next video? I don't want to like mortify myself even more talking about how bad North Dakota is. So, or suggesting how bad North Dakota is.
Oh God, we're gonna destroy it. All 5 people who live there will hate us now.
Oh God.
Oh, okay. No. So the next one. Well,
No,
yeah,
not 5, 4. One that died from corona. So yeah, you have to take that.
yeah. Okay, you're right. But this is okay. So, if you're worried about you feeling awkward, I'm pretty sure that this one will probably come across as awkward. I haven't heard this, but this is Joe Biden pressed on supporting the 1994 crime bill.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's see how this goes.
Angelica Portales. No, not at all. Garnet Valley, Pennsylvania. Republican who voted for President Trump last time.
Thank you, George. Thank you, Vice President Biden. Nice to meet you. What's your view on the crime bill that you wrote in 1994, which showed prejudice against minorities? Where do you stand today on that?
Well, first of all, things have changed drastically. That crime bill went and voted. The Black Caucus voted for it. Every black mayor supported it across the board. And it didn't. The crime bill itself did not have mandatory sentences except for 2 things. It had 3 strikes and you're out, which I voted against in the crime bill. But it had a lot of other things in it that turned out to be both bad and good. I wrote the Violence Against Women Act. That was part of it. The assault weapons ban and other things that were good. What I was against was giving states more money for prison systems that they could build, state prison systems. And you have 93 out of every 100 people in jail now is in a state prison, not in a federal prison, because they built more prisons. I also wrote into that bill a thing called drug courts. I don't believe anybody should be going to jail for drug use. They should be going into mandatory rehabilitation. We should be building rehab centers to have these people housed. We should we should decriminalize marijuana, wipe out the record so you can actually say in honesty, you ever been arrested for anything? You can say no, because we're going to pass a law saying there is no background that you have to reveal relative to the use of marijuana. And so there's a lot of things, but in addition to that, we got to change the system. I joined with a group of people in the House to provide for changing the system from punishment to rehabilitation. Along with a guy named Arlen Specter, who you may remember, I wrote the Second Chance Act.
In the meantime, an awful lot of people were jailed for minor drug crimes after the
Exactly right.
Was it a mistake to support it?
Yes, it was. But here's where the mistake came. The mistake came in terms of what the states did locally. What we did federally, we said it was, you remember, George, it was all about the same time for the same crime. What I had done as chairman of the Judiciary Committee, took the 10 circuit courts of appeals, took some really brilliant lawyers working for me in judiciary. We did a study, and we determined what happens if, for the first, second, third offense, for any crime in the criminal justice system, at the federal level, if you're a black man, it's the first time you committed robbery. How long would you go to jail on average? If you're a white man, how long? Black man would go to jail on average 13 years. White man, 2 years. I go down the list of every single crime. So we set up a sentencing commission. We didn't set the time. Every single solitary maximum was reduced in there. But what happened was, it became the same time for the same crime. So it said you have to serve between 1 and 3 years. It ended up becoming much lower. Black folks went to jail a lot less than they would have before, but it was a mistake.
Let me ask another follow-up on the crime bill. It also funded 100,000 police back in 1994. You've often said that more cops clearly mean less crime. Do you still believe that?
Yes, if in fact they're involved in community policing, not jump squads. For example, when we had community policing from the mid-90s on till
What's a jump squad?
I don't have any idea. I've never heard that before.
What happened? Violent crime actually went down precipitously. Remember the significant rise in violent crime that was occurring in the late 80s into the 90s. It went down, and fewer African Americans were arrested because you had the requirement. The cops didn't like it. They didn't like the community policing because you had to have 2 people in a vehicle. They had to get out of their cars. They had to introduce themselves to who owned the local liquor store, who owned the local grocery store, who was the woman on the corner. And what they would do, George, they'd actually go and give people their phone numbers. A cop would give the phone number. So if Nellie Smith was on the second floor where drug deals took place and things happened
Isn't that 911?
Her apartment. She could
Yeah.
call and say, "It's Millie."
What
and
phone
there's
number
something
would they
going on
give
here,"
them?
And they'd never reveal it was her because they know if she knew that in fact they'd never report the crime. She'd never report. So
It's actually
started to
912.
What happened? They eliminated the funding for community policing.
True, yes.
Community policing doesn't mean more people coming in up-armored Humvees and swarming like that. When they did, it turned out that by the time we got to the late 90s, the crime had come down so much. And the mayors and everybody asked the question, where do you want me to spend the money? They say, well, only 1% thought violent crime was a problem. It was as high as 22%.
Right now we have a systemic problem. How do you get the kind of policing, prevent the kind of policing?
You have to change the way in which they police. One of the things I'm going to do, George, is set up a national study group made up of cops, social workers, as well as made up of the black community and the brown community to sit down in the White House and over the next year come up with significant reforms that need to take place within communities. You have to bring them together. One of the things I've observed is, the neighborhood I grew up in Claymont either became a cop, a firefighter, or a priest. I wasn't qualified much to do any one of them. But here's the deal, all kidding aside. Most cops don't like bad cops.
Correct.
They don't like it.
Correct.
And so what happens is they get intimidated into not reporting. So one of the things we do is there has to be transparency available. We have to be able to go in at the federal level, be able to go in and check out whether or not there's systematic problems within police departments. If in fact a cop needs to be tried, it's not the prosecutor in the community, in the district or there. You got to go outside the community to get another prosecutor to come in and handle the crime. There's a lot of things we've learned. And it takes time, but we can do this. You can ban chokeholds, but beyond that, you have to teach people how to de-escalate circumstances. De-escalate. So instead of anybody coming at you and the first thing you do is shoot to kill, you shoot them in the leg. There's ways you have to do more background checks in terms of whether or not the person coming in passes certain psychological test. And the last thing I'll say, and I'm sorry but it's really, I think, really important.
You said shoot him in the leg?
You have to be in a position where you are able to identify.
It's just a fundamental thing people don't understand about guns.
Change. And one of the things that has to change is so many cops get called into circumstances where somebody is mentally off, like what happened not long ago with that guy with the knife. That's why we have to provide within police departments psychologists and social workers to go out with the cops on those calls, some of those 911 calls, to de-escalate the circumstance, to deal with talking them down. But we can't. Cops are kind of like school teachers now. A school teacher has to know everything from how to handle hunger in a household as well as how to teach you how to read. Well, cops don't have that breadth, and there's a lot of things we can do. We shouldn't be defunding cops. We should be mandating the things that we should be doing within police departments and make sure there's total transparency.
Got to take another quick break. We'll be right back.
I caught him this time.
Whew. Great. Good job.
Yeah. All right.
Okay,
I gotta start with that thing. The shoot him in the leg thing. Okay.
Okay. So what was his point? I'm sorry. I wasn't sure what he was pointing out there. Like trying not trying to shoot fatally.
Oh my God! For one, I think we should probably play that again, just because I want to make sure I got the proper context here.
Okay. Yeah.
What time was that? That was about 6 minutes or something.
I wasn't sure. I somewhere definitely in the second half of the video.
It was in the latter half here.
Handle the crime. There's a lot of things we've learned, and it takes time, but we can do this. You can ban chokeholds. But
it was
beyond
around
that, you have to teach people how to de-escalate circumstances. De-escalate. So instead of anybody coming at you and the first thing you do is shoot to kill, you shoot them in the leg. There's ways.
Fuck off. Okay. 2 points here. 2 points, actually. Before I get into the leg thing, Joe, de-escalation is... There's no shooting involved if there's de-escalation. That's fucking point number one. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit. point number 2. This is the most important thing, okay? How well do you know firearms?
Well, I only know it through edged weapons.
Okay,
So,
so
that's all
you're
I
more
know.
familiar with knives and the wonderful Coca-Cola hats with the razor blades.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. A fundamental rule when it comes to firearms is that every gun is always loaded. That is a fundamental rule. There are no exceptions to that. And I'm talking about this in terms of like this is a thing where it's like, this is something that as a gun owner you need to understand and internalize for pure safety reasons because of what guns are. Okay, you can take the magazine out, you can make sure that there are no bullets in the magazine, and you can make sure that there's no bullets in the chamber, and you can make absolutely certain that the gun is 100% unloaded, unchambered, there is no bullet even close to you, and the second that slide closes, and it's still in your hand, and you know for a fucking fact that no bullet has entered that gun, it doesn't matter. That gun is still loaded. Okay? You treat it as if it's loaded. Okay?
You never point the gun at someone.
You never, ever, ever point the gun at anything that you are not willing for that gun to shoot at. That is, and I think people who don't even understand guns would agree, that's a pretty good rule to internalize, right?
That's good. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, in terms of the leg thing, you never, ever, ever shoot at anything that you are not willing to kill. Okay? There is no such thing as shooting to wound. And I will explain why. The whole concept of shooting somebody in the leg, yeah, people think that because they've seen movies. They think the whole concept of, oh, just shoot the gun out of somebody's hand because we've seen that in cowboy movies. Oh, just shoot them in the leg and then they're wounded and then they just sit there. No, do you understand that there are things called femoral arteries in the human body? If you so much as nick the femoral artery that's in a leg, a huge artery pumping massive amounts of blood down from your torso all the way down to your feet, you will bleed out in less than 10 minutes. And die. Okay? So there's no such thing as trying to shoot to wound. If you are shooting at somebody, it is a kill shot every time. And that's
It's always shoot to kill.
That's the entire point. Is what I'm saying with that is this isn't a matter of you try to shoot them in the head every time because fuck it, who cares? Why shoot him in the leg? No, what I'm saying is if you are shooting somebody, there is no concept of you are shooting to wound. No, what I'm saying is that if a bullet hits somebody, it is going to cause major damage, and you have to assume the worst possible outcome, which means every time that you might shoot somebody, you are shooting to kill. Because I would ask it right now, can you point out where the femoral artery is on your leg?
No.
No, I can't either. But if you shoot that, you will kill that person.
Interesting. And this is something that you've learned as, like, from the very beginning when you became a gun owner, or
Yes.
or like you learned this over time.
No, it's fundamental. This is one of the very basic rules of just gun ownership, gun usage. This is one of my problems that I really have whenever I'm talking about guns with somebody who's like on the other side, where you know they're opposed to guns. I get really annoyed because a lot of people on that side have never even shot a gun before, and they don't know these basic things that every single gun owner internalizes and fundamentally understands. And they talk about them in the concept of what they've seen in movies. And if we're talking about things in the context of movies, then why can't I go out and buy a DeLorean and travel to 1950? Okay? Because I saw it in a
completely-
movie, that must be how DeLoreans work.
Well, this is completely new to me. I never understood. Well, I understood that you should never point a gun to no, even if it was unloaded. But I never thought that when you shoot, it's always shoot to kill. You always assume, even if you're going for an angle, it's always shoot to kill.
Yes. Because you have to, especially because you also have to assume, even if it's something as not as extreme as like you hit the femoral artery or something like that, you have to assume just any number of things. What if it was a completely normal wounding situation, but you don't know what that person's medical situation is? You could put them into shock, and then they're going to die of a heart attack because of an unrelated heart disease that you're unfamiliar with.
Right.
They could
Or
have a
if there
heart
could
murmur
be-
that you are unaware of, and they could be in a situation where that sudden blast of adrenaline that comes naturally to every human being in a fight or flight situation is going to overwhelm them and shut down their system.
Or there could be an infection, right? Like
An
like
infection
something
that could come later. A lot of people have died in wars because of infections from perfectly survivable gunshot wounds. This is the thing. This is... Look, again, what I'm saying is not that every time you shoot a gun, it's going to be fatal. Like in the movies where, again, you shoot somebody and they instantly go down and the hero looks away and there's no reason to worry about them because they were shot, so it's done. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if you should never, ever believe the concept that it is possible to wound somebody and then that's going to be it. No, if you are in a situation where shooting somebody is necessary, you need to be prepared for and accept that you are killing them. Even if they don't die, which is ideally what would be the outcome, you need to expect that they will. And that's why I'm comparing it directly to the standard concept of every single gun is loaded. Again, it doesn't mean that the gun is literally loaded. It means you treat it as such. You never, ever treat it as if it's not. Sorry, that's that's one that gets
completely informative. That's something I just learned. I have never ever held a loaded gun. So I've never fired a gun. So I come from a state that doesn't really promote guns. So
well, I mean, you and me
in
both.
fact,
So
I mean, well, yeah, but like, I'm a product of the DARE education. So if I ever see a gun, I'm supposed to report it.
Well, I think of Eddie Eagle when it comes to that. So
okay. There's a gun. Go. Okay.
Anyways, I'm sorry. That was a part there. So he said a lot of other things. Was there anything that stood out to you?
Jesus, I'm completely plastered from alcohol. So
well, we flipped it around. I've been the one who's usually completely plastered.
Okay.
So that is okay, my friend. Don't feel bad.
Okay. Well, I don't remember. I'm sorry. I'm just blanking right now. I think I'm not sure. I don't have anything right now. So I mean, we can move on to the next video unless there is no other video. We could move on to, I guess, Trump's video.
Yeah, that would be the last of the Biden. We tried to get 4 clips from Biden, and we've got 4 clips from Trump. Now, we both noticed that the Trump one's significantly shorter, and that'll be interesting to see why. I'm going to assume it's possibly because Trump is just a little bit more succinct.
Let's see. Okay, here we go.
That is our first video here from Trump. Is Trump denounces white supremacy and sidesteps question on QAnon.
Okay, let's see what he says.
Okay.
We were supposed to, as mentioned, be watching you on a debate stage right now. We're not doing that, so let's clear up a few things from the last one. You were asked point blank to denounce white supremacy. In the moment, you didn't. You asked some follow-up questions. Who specifically? A couple of days later, on a different show, you denounced white supremacy.
No,
My question to you is,
you've done this to
why
me and
does
everybody.
it seem like
I denounce white supremacy, okay?
You did
I've
2 days
denounced
later.
white supremacy for years, but you always do it. You always start off with a question. You didn't ask Joe Biden whether or not he denounces Antifa. I watched him on the same basic show with Lester Holt, and he was asking questions like Biden was a child.
So this is a little bit of a dodge.
Are you listening? I denounce white supremacy.
Okay.
What's your next question?
Do you feel, it feels sometimes you're hesitant to do so, like you wait a beat.
Here we go again. Every time, in fact, my people came, I'm sure they'll ask you the white supremacy question. I denounce white supremacy.
Okay.
And frankly, you want to know something? I denounce Antifa, and I denounce these people on the left that are burning down our cities that are run by Democrats who don't know what they're doing.
While we're denouncing, let me ask you about QAnon. It is this theory that Democrats are a satanic pedophile ring and that you are the savior of that. Now, can you just once and for all state that that is completely not true and disavow QAnon in its entirety?
I know nothing about QAnon.
I just told you.
I know very little. You told me, but what you tell me doesn't necessarily make it fact. I hate to say that.
Well, Trump's right about that.
I do know they are very much against pedophilia. They fight it very hard, but I know nothing about it.
They believe it is
if
a
you'd like
satanic
me
cult
to
run by the deep
study
state.
the subject, I'll tell you what I do know about. I know about Antifa, and I know about the radical left, and I know how violent they are and how vicious they are, and I know how they're burning down cities run by Democrats, not run by Republicans.
Republican Senator Ben Sasse said, quote, QAnon is nuts, and real leaders call conspiracy theories conspiracy theories.
He may be
Why
right.
not just say it's
Can I be
crazy
honest?
and not true?
He may be right. I just don't know about QAnon.
You do know.
I don't know. No, I don't know. I don't know.
Let me ask you another thing.
Let's waste a whole show. You start off with white supremacy, I denounce it. You start off with something else. Let's go. Keep asking me these questions.
I do have one more in this vein.
Let me just tell you, what I do hear about it is they are very strongly against pedophilia. And I agree with that. I mean, I do agree with that, and I agree with it
But there's not
very
a
strongly.
satanic pedophile
I have
cult
no
being run
idea.
by.
I know
You
nothing
don't know
about
that? Okay.
No, I don't know
you
that.
Just this
neither
week.
do you know that.
Okay, just this week
Why
you
aren't
retweeted.
you asking me about Antifa? Why aren't you asking me
Because you
about the
just-
radical left?
because you're
Why aren't
volunteering
you
it.
asking Joe Biden questions about why doesn't he condemn Antifa? Why does he say it doesn't exist?
Because you're here
Antifa,
before me.
no, excuse so cute. Antifa exists. They're vicious, they're violent, they kill people, and they're burning down our cities. And they happen to be radical left.
Hey, NB.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well.
Well,
okay.
so it's kind of less that it was succinct and more that I guess they just cut him off. Because he was in the middle of a thought right there.
He was. I was I'm not into conspiracy theories, but the fact that he has much shorter clips kind of speaks something. Not sure.
Well, I was very legitimately assuming that it was because Trump is somebody who just gets to the point, you know? So I very legitimately thought that these clips from Trump would be much shorter because he's just going to more directly answer the question and not beat around the bush. But, yeah, if that's anything to indicate, based off of our next three, we'll have to see. But it looks like they're just cutting him off.
Yeah, it looks like it. What I got from it was, well, for one thing, it was a very confrontational interview. It was definitely a 180 from what we watched with Joe Biden's town hall.
Yeah,
definitely Trump was on the defensive, but at the same time, I think the questions that were posed were definitely ludicrous, I think. I mean, we had in 2016, Chris Wallace had asked the very same question about denouncing white supremacy. And Donald Trump just there bluntly said, I denounce white supremacy.
I mean, that's the thing is, like, he's been on record with this dozens and dozens of times. I fully get why he's kind of pissed off and throwing it back at her. Is like, how many more times do you want me to say it?
Yeah. It's and then they're going into conspiracy theories. I mean, only in 2020, man. Only in 2020. We would never see something like this in 2012, 2008. Anything prior to 2020, really. About
honestly,
she's trying to raise a legitimate. She's trying to raise a question. Trying to raise a question on conspiracy theories to sound legitimate.
That is the part that's amazing, and the part that blows me away is when Trump answers, I don't really know anything about that, and she says, yes, you do, and he's like, no, I don't. Yes, and it's like, why would he know anything about this? It's a crazy internet thing. I spend a lot of time on the internet. I don't really even know what QAnon is, for fuck's sakes.
I don't know either. So I mean, he did say he's anti-pedophilia. So I guess that's one thing. That's good.
I mean, I'm glad to hear that. That's pretty good.
Like, I don't really know QAnon. I don't pay attention to QAnon. It's not in my sight when I go online. I'm sure he has followers who are of QAnon, but he doesn't pay attention to them.
Yeah, but I mean,
it's just crazy how they just go after these fringe groups and say Trump is already 100% their leader or something like that. I don't know.
No, you are 100% right about it. That is the point that really should be brought up is just because he would have some people who support him who believe in QAnon, I'm legitimately curious. How many people support Biden and legitimately believe in moon hoax theories, flat earth, anti-vax, or JFK assassination theories?
Or something like that. Or let's say about Barack Obama. I mean, there were Black Panther supporters who voted for Barack Obama. Can we say that he was their leader? No, I don't believe so. He wasn't that extremist.
Possibly even more to the point, Barack Obama might have had some of those Black Israelites.
Oh yeah, true. Man.
We talked about that before. You don't remember that?
I don't remember. Come on, man. I'm already under the influence. It's hard for me to remember right now.
Oh, okay, that's fine. The long and short of it is those are guys who believe that white people were created by an ancient, evil African mad scientist.
What?
No, I know. It sounds like I'm being fucking racist, but that's what they legitimately believe.
That sounds similar to the whole Mormon story that black people are sinners. They're black because they sinned against God and in the past or something like that. I don't know. I'm just paraphrasing. I don't speak for Mormons, but from what I've heard, there is a myth that black people in their book that they're black because of something that happened. So
yeah, I think that's one of the things that the current LDS tries to ignore and get away from, denounce. But yeah, no, you're right. That was in there originally. that was a Joseph Smith
probably
thing.
Didn't get a lot of black votes. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, as far as it goes, I mean, okay, so she wanted him to denounce white supremacists. He has done that a bunch of times. He did it here again. And with the QAnon thing, my main takeaway is, yeah, I'm with Trump. I don't know much about QAnon, so what is he supposed to say about it?
Also, yeah, what is he supposed to say about it? I mean, he has denounced it, right after Charlottesville. He denounced white supremacy. He said,
oh, dude, that whole thing with the whole Charlottesville thing, that myth about the good people on both sides. I mean, it's right there in black and white. He says, I'm not talking about the white supremacists or the racists. They should be condemned totally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I still can't believe Biden brings that up, but yeah. So that was that one.
It's a lie that still lives. So that's why.
It's so easy to disprove.
I know. I'm just entertained. I'm just so glad that it's far more entertaining than Biden's town hall.
Oh yeah, already when it comes to Trump, we're getting the vaudeville show. We're getting the old school entertainment with him.
Look, there are times where I'm like, I'm fine watching a nice Errol Morris documentary, but maybe I just want to watch something by like Michael Bay for just a bit. Yeah, just a little bit, just to excite my mood.
Well, considering how old these guys are, I think it's more akin to say that we're talking about like a very old Ken Burns documentary versus a good old Three Stooges short.
Okay, I guess politics is all a comedy now. So.
Well, yeah, I think that's the premise of our show, isn't it?
That is true. Well, so what's the next video that we have lined up?
Okay, so the next one is, if people can remember, we had the whole thing about Joe Biden's answer to how he would have handled the pandemic. This would be a bit of the corollary. We did the right thing, in quotes. Trump defends coronavirus response.
Okay.
You said we're rounding the corner.
I believe we're rounding the corner.
Now, 10% of the country approximately has had COVID. That means 80, 90%, 90%, let's do the math, is still vulnerable.
Right.
There's been some talk, including from the White House lately, that perhaps it approves of what's called herd immunity. That's where you basically just let young people and everybody get sick. You try to protect the old people and those who are sick, and hopefully it gets up to a certain level, and now we're all immune.
Yeah.
So let's just be clear about it. It also means more deaths. Do you support herd immunity as a strategy? Essentially just let people get sick.
The cure cannot be worse than the problem itself. We did the right thing. We were expected to lose 2,200,000 people and maybe more than that. We're at 210,000 people. One person is too much. It should have never happened because of China. It happened because of China. And you have to get that and understand that. But it shouldn't have happened. But we were expected to lose. If you look at the original charts from original doctors who are respected by everybody, 2,200,000
That
people.
2 million figure, though, is if you literally did nothing.
People.
The 2 million figure is if you did absolutely nothing, it would be 2 million. The question is, should the deaths be better than 200,000 when, relative to the rest of the world, we have a worse death rate?
I left North Carolina, which I love. I left Pennsylvania. We won a big case in Michigan because that governor has a lockdown where nobody but her husband can do anything. He can go boating and do whatever he wants, but nobody else can. The fact is we're winning all these cases because it's unconstitutional what they're doing. And I think they're doing it for political reasons. But the fact is the cure, you can't let this continue to go on with the lockdowns.
Well,
and I believe that on November 4th, you're going to have a lot of these governors. Look at what's happening to New York. New York is a mess. They lost almost 40,000 people. They have a lockdown like you've never seen. Now they're open. It's like a ghost town.
Let's get Stan.
And Savannah, it's very important. People are leaving New York by the thousands. And you're going to have a hard time ever building it up again. So that cure, that so-called cure that you talk about, it can't be worse than the problem. The problem is a bad problem.
Hey.
Well, this is the thing. It may come down to my own personal biases, but I'm with him on this. I mean, the very basic thing that we left off on, the cure can't be worse than the disease.
Mm-hmm.
Well, cure can't be worse than the problem, is what he literally said.
For the problem, yeah.
I fundamentally agree with that.
No, like from the very beginning, there was a prediction that millions of people would die. I mean, as I said, like Governor Gavin Newsom of California had predicted that hundreds of thousands of people would potentially die in the state.
Yeah.
The fact that we have basically averted it, we basically have flattened the curve. That was the whole point of all these lockdowns within the past 6 months, was to flatten the curve, and we have flattened the curve. And this has given us time to provide with new therapies, with new technologies to address COVID-19, to come up with possible vaccines to tackle the virus. Like the time is of the essence right now.
Yeah.
Because like we need time in order to develop all these like new cures, to address COVID-19. So I mean, it is a crisis. Like I have argued with my friend about this, whether if this is a disaster or not. I think it is a disaster to have had 200,000 Americans die.
I mean, there's no question about it. It is absolutely a disaster.
And I've argued about it, and he said like, no, it's not a disaster. No, it is a disaster. 200,000 Americans dying within just 6 months. That's a lot.
But even more than that this is kind of where I go with Trump. It's also a huge disaster in terms of like just the disruption to everybody's lives and their jobs and the economy. And I know that there are some people out there who look at it as like, the economy is just numbers and that only affects big businesses and whatnot. No, I look around my own neighborhoods, and there's a lot of businesses that used to be opened up that I used to go to, and they're just gone. They're boarded up. They're just shells of a building. Those people lost their jobs. I don't know what happened to those people. Do they even have a home anymore?
You're absolutely right. Like there are people who are out of a job, having to file for unemployment claims. They don't have any income to pay off their bills, and they're basically within some sort of like existential crisis of like, okay, how am I supposed to live? Like what am I supposed to do? I mean, not to mention the psychological cost to Americans right now. I mean, I don't know what it is, but I'm sure there has been an uptick in suicide rates lately.
Oh, it's not something that you have to assume. It's 100% proven. Yeah,
I don't know what the numbers are. I don't know what the numbers are. But I've had for a while I was living alone for the past 6 months. And boy, that was tough. Having to be on lockdown, no businesses were open within a couple of months, and having to self-isolate. That takes a toll. And there were points where I had like severe depression, like severe, where I had thoughts that just veered off into something I dare not say. But it is a toll to not have human contact or human communication. It is pretty bad. But mine is mild compared to what other people are probably experiencing. People who probably have not, I mean, at least I have a job, I still have a family to go to. There are Americans out there who don't have jobs. I mean, you have millions of Americans. I mean, what's the unemployment rate right now? It's probably around like 8%, if not like higher.
I think that's about right. I'd have to look it up, but yeah.
So it is a crisis right now. And I'm sure we can find a way to fix the economy. But yeah, like right now it's just like you just have to live with COVID. I think, it's not just about the number of lives being lost directly through COVID. It's the lives being lost, as Trump has stated, like indirectly to COVID as well. Like
with the fear, the panic, and the isolation. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're really lucky right now at the moment that you're back home. You're with family. I know that you're with your parents at the moment. Like that's all good things for you. Like I can only imagine what it must be like for somebody who, when this happened, they were living out of state, possibly like really young, like in their early 20s, moved out of home for the first time. and then all of a sudden, they're just cut off. Like they can't go back home. What are they supposed to do? You don't get human interaction through a Zoom meeting, you know?
You don't. I mean, as much as I would love to hug you right now, Caius.
I know. Unfortunately, I don't have the proper peripherals for that.
I know. I can only hug my desktop monitor right now. There. Hi. Okay. Well,
but yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying. It's like, yeah, there's an enormous cost to trying to prevent the virus.
Yes.
Look, it's a rock and a hard place situation here.
It is. It's a catch-22 situation. We've seen it with China. So, like, I mean, look how China addressed COVID-19 in Wuhan specifically. I mean, to some degree, like, China has been a lot more efficient, maybe, about addressing COVID-19, but terribly draconian with how they addressed COVID-19. There were moments that they had bolted doors, scalded doorways.
Yeah.
And there have been people who have jumped out of their own buildings just because like they could not tolerate the lockdown. Like not just like a complete and utter like lockdown like we have, but a lockdown imposed by a totalitarian government in China. Like you could not leave your building. Like they forced you not to leave your apartment unit. Like
I mean, to anybody who can understand this reference, I looked at it and all I saw was Dishonored. So a video game set in a plague, basically.
Look, none of our like a lot of people like to place New Zealand as a model, but like come on, New Zealand is like has only a population of like what 5 million people.
Well, let me double check that here real quick.
I don't know. I don't know what the population is, but
no, you are almost 100% accurate. 4.886.
Yeah. So I mean, New Zealand has been touted as
4.9 million people essentially.
Right. New Zealand has been touted as the example. Like has had like 0 COVID-19 cases.
That doesn't count. They're a tiny island.
Exactly. So United States is basically a country of like 50 countries, technically.
Yeah.
Well, not technically, de facto. Like each one has had a different policy, and we've said this earlier in the podcast, where each state addresses COVID-19 differently. You have places like Louisiana, which had huge surges earlier on because of a huge event, and then you have places like Nebraska or Alaska that didn't really have that much of an exposure. It's complicated. You can't really place like everything under like one umbrella. I guess I'm a bit going off on a tangent, but going back to what Trump was saying, that I think we should be glad that it could have gone worse. It could have gone worse.
It could have gone so much worse. Yeah.
It could have gone so
again,
much worse.
I mean, I said it before. I mean, let's not have any kind of delusions about this. Ultimately, we're in as good a position as we are because the disease is not as deadly as we were fearing. What we're looking at is really not the result of anything that anybody has done. Like Trump can't take credit for the fact that we've had so few deaths. It's mostly because the disease is not that deadly. I mean, I'll be the first to say that, you know.
But I also want to credit the American populace for responding to the pandemic. I mean, as much as there have been like videos of people not wearing masks, most Americans do wear masks. and do protect themselves and protect themselves for others.
Yeah, here's the thing is I would like to ask you this from your perspective. I mean, when I go out everywhere, I walk around on the streets and nobody wears a mask outside. Because frankly, why would you? But have you ever gone into a store or something like that and people don't wear masks? Because I've never seen that.
Nope, I have not. People follow the rules. People do. People do
because I think it's a fine
precautions.
compromise in terms of like this kind of goes into what Trump's point was, is like the cure cannot be worse than the disease. We can't lock everything down. We can't stop people from doing things. Let's find the compromise, the best that we possibly can. Let's let people try to live as best as they possibly can. But here are some rules that we have. Please follow this, and this will help everybody. And I think everybody is willing to jump on board with that.
I think he's right. So you gotta treat Americans as adults. So I think this is kind of similar to like what we did in World War II. So World War II. Okay, I just want to give this as an analogy. I'm not sure if it's the right analogy, but I'll just kind of throw it.
Okay.
There was a point where we were basically facing a shortfall in our budget for World War II to fight the Nazis and the Japanese Empire. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that the Roosevelt administration was tempted to basically, let's confiscate, people's money to fill in the gaps, so that we don't have a shortfall in the budget. But the Roosevelt administration basically introduced a bond proposal, like, hey. Well, we'll not steal your money, but let's treat you like adults. Why not give you the option of investing in us winning in the war by providing you a bond, right? Like, we'll pay you to, invest in us winning the war. Like, I think that's kind of similar to what Trump is saying. Like,
you guys give us money now, and once we've got this all squared away, we'll pay you back with interest later.
Everybody's
seen that. Everybody's seen an old Looney Tunes cartoon or an old comic book, and they all have the same thing: buy U.S. war bonds, right? That's exactly what you're talking about.
Buy bonds today.
Yeah.
But no, it's exactly what Trump is trying to say. Like, we're not going to impose a draconian law over all of America. We're going to say, hey, everyone's an adult here. You have the option of wearing a mask or not. We're not going to try to impose a law on it, but we're going to say wear a mask. It's up to you as an American to pick the right choice. We're not going to force you into anything. We're going to give you the option, and that's what America has always been about. You have the option of buying into a bond or not.
And I frankly think that's what you would have to do in order to get the maximum amount of compliance possible. Because if you suddenly said, like, we're going to force masks, and I know that there are some people out there who think that, we should have forcibly made masks a thing. Oh, people are going to defy you so fast. You look around at your stores seeing people wearing masks, trust me, they will not be wearing them like within minutes of something like that being passed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to be told what to do.
No, that's what Americans are about. Like give them the option. Don't mandate it. And I think that's what Trump has been suggesting all along. Americans hate to be treated like children, and it has been ingrained in our blood since 1776.
Absolutely.
Really.
I mean, we're founded on a revolution because we didn't want to pay a tea tax. You know?
That was, unlawfully imposed on us because we didn't have a say in it. So that's the whole point. Give Americans the option to choose. That's the most important part. Americans are able to rally for a cause. They can. We've seen this after 9/11. We've seen this after World War II. We've seen this after JFK's assassination. Americans do love to support America, but don't let it be mandated. And that's what Trump has been suggesting all along.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not any sort of forced patriotism.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. I'm like, there have been moments where I do fault Trump on stuff. Like I fault him on certain responses that he's done. I think he's been bad on certain things, but he's right on how we should impose certain laws, and mandates are not the thing. I think Americans are willing to save other Americans. We've done a good job. Let's push further. And I don't know. You can argue he's being lazy, but I think he's right. I think he's right on this point.
No, I don't think it's a matter of being lazy. I really do think it's a matter of when it comes down to America, you really do have to, in some ways, take the path of least resistance in order to get the maximum benefit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
right.
we are just simply not going to listen to orders, but we will listen to suggestions.
Yes, give us an option. Don't give us a mandate. That's the issue.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so what's the next video that we have, Caius?
Okay, so the next one that we've got is actually a bit of a dovetail off of the previous. This is Trump questioned if his opinion on mask wearing changed after contracting COVID. So actually perfectly in line with everything we've just discussed, pretty much.
It looks like, just looking at the picture of the video, it looks like two ladies about to sing something.
Well, I watched a little bit of it before, and I think the one on the right in the white blazer is a daughter, and the one on the left in the red dress shirt is her mother.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I think that's how that goes. But yes, I agree with you. That is how it looks.
Okay.
Okay, so here we go.
Mr. President, my parents are, as you heard, both frontline healthcare workers, and I've seen the physical and the mental tolls that this pandemic has taken on them firsthand, as well as the exacerbation of coronavirus due to Americans who are not wearing masks or participating in social distancing. After contracting COVID-19 yourself, has your opinion changed on the importance of mask wearing?
No, because I was okay with the masks. I was good with it, but I've heard many different stories on masks. I mean, I had, being president, you have people, they bring meals, they bring this, and I had an instance recently where a very wonderful person is bringing me a meal, and he's playing with his mask, and he's touching his mask all over the place, and then he's bringing a plate in, and I'm saying, well, I don't know if that's so good. I mean, the good news, I didn't eat it, okay? I decided not to eat it. This was a month ago. But look, you have on the masks, you have two stories. You have a story where they want, a story where they don't want. I am all for it.
I don't get that because it's just all of your public health officials, your administration, they're in unison about this. No. They're all in unison about it. The University of Washington, which is they have a model that your coronavirus task force relies on, says that if everyone wore a mask, you could cut expected deaths in half.
And then you have other people that disagree.
Well, what does that mean?
Scott Atkins, if you look at Scott, Dr. Scott, he's from great guy, Stanford. He will tell you
he's
that
not an infectious disease expert.
Oh, I don't know. Look, he's an expert. He's one of the great experts of the world.
But I don't get it because you have so much power and influence as president. You could require it at your rallies, and you could say, everyone put on a mask right now. And the University of Washington says you would save lives.
University of Washington, and you have other places say different things. You have a lot. Hey, Dr. Fauci said don't wear a mask, right?
At first, but then everybody agreed.
Well, I don't know. Then he changed his mind. But then you have a report coming out 2 days ago that 85% of the people wearing masks.
I looked at that report. It's not about mask wearing. It was neutral on the question of masks.
We're on the same side. I say wear the mask. I'm fine with it. I have no problem. We're on the same side.
Hey, Ed.
Okay.
Yeah. Based off of these three so far, I gotta say, like, I'm kind of legitimately surprised. I think Biden was being asked harder questions. I mean, like, this is just... They're so overly concerned about tiny little minutia about what Trump is saying that they just keep hitting it over and over again, and it's just kind of pointless.
Well, they're trying to like address certain like I guess buzz points. I'm not sure if that's a term, but like basically points that like basically cliches, right? Like much of media for very long.
Yeah, certainly cliches, but I mean, like, he summed it up right there at the end, and I think he summed it up right there at the beginning with the first one. And I mean, granted, this question was being asked by somebody in the audience, but I'm kind of amazed that this is being promoted as a highlight. He said, "Wear the mask." He's not telling anybody to do it. This is exactly what our conversation was. He's not forcing anybody to do it, but he says, like, I'm not telling anybody not to wear the mask. Wear the mask.
Wear the mask. Go. Yeah. No. I think they're trying. Like, it seems as if that the interviewer was trying to put words into his mouth.
Yeah.
Like.
Well, I mean, that's been kind of the argument about this since the beginning, is that, she was, it was a debate against her, is what he actually had, as opposed to a debate against
I mean, obviously Biden. This was a far more confrontational, far more adversarial town hall than Joe Biden's.
Yeah.
So, it's a definitely a 180. Trump has a lot of work cut out for him. So,
fortunately, unlike the last one, I don't think there's necessarily that much to say about this. It's just, did he change his mind on the mask? No, he's kind of skeptical about the mask, but he says, like, there's no reason not to wear it, so go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, he did actually tweet to wear the mask like a couple months ago, so it's not like he's anti-mask. I do remember tweeting my friend that he did say wear a mask.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's like, I don't know. I think he didn't cover enough of his situation. I feel like they're trying to. I think the initial question was like basically trying to draw out his experiences from when he had COVID. I feel like he should have talked more about that to get some like sympathy points, but he didn't really, because he had to like confront like the interviewer who was like telling him about like certain things and stuff. So I don't know.
Possibly, I suppose. Yeah.
But,
you mean like the original ladies who were questioning him? You mean?
Yes, the original question was like, has your mind changed over like after having had COVID?
So if I can interpret, you think that they were trying to draw him into like a positive thing, and then the NBC interviewer there, who responded and jumped in the middle part, she was trying to like steal back the focus or something like that.
Well, yeah. So like, like the interviewer was telling, like basically saying like, well, you said this, but you said that. I mean, sure, there have been moments that Trump has said certain things, but it's kind of like, I don't know, like she keeps interrupting him. Like there was no interruption of Biden's, like except for like until he spoke like 7 minutes after.
Well, Yeah, I agree. There wasn't really an interruption. George had questions, follow-up questions several times.
Well,
I wouldn't necessarily call those interruptions necessarily, but he did jump in several times.
He did jump in. I don't want to... Okay, so I'm not this kind of person that, like, wants to call out someone's background and trying to, like, understand their whole intent. But, I mean, you kind of have to say that George... I mean, he is a former Democratic... advisor. He was an advisor to Bill Clinton. He was in his cabinet. So, I don't want to insinuate anything, but I mean, come on, like, that guy was definitely for the Democratic Party.
Oh, I didn't even know that about him. So, I mean, yeah, I guess that doesn't really surprise me, but.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, Trump seems to have had, like, a much tougher town hall than Joe Biden. Sure, he is the president, he's an incumbent, he needs to defend, and the thing is that I'm fine having him to face tough questions. The thing is that I'm concerned that they were a little too soft on Biden. So, I don't know. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
That definitely seems to be how it's looking. So do we have another video of Trump? We've got our last one, which is actually the longest of all the Trump videos, which is still not nearly as long as most of the Biden ones. But so we've got about 4 minutes here, and this is called Trump defends election year Supreme Court nomination. So this is all the Amy Coney Barrett stuff, I assume.
Okay, cool.
We've got another voter, Adam Schuker. He voted for Clinton in 2016. He's registered as a Democrat and says he's supporting Biden. Adam, take it away.
Thank you, Savannah. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Adam.
4 years ago, Senate leadership said it was inappropriate to push through a nominee in an election year. Yet they fast-tracked your nominee for the Supreme Court just today. The question I have for you is, what do you say to the voter that thinks it's hypocritical to act in that manner and that they can't trust Republicans' word?
So when I was elected, and when a president is elected, they're elected for a period of 4 years. And Justice Ginsburg said it best, I think, talking about President Obama having to do with somebody else, that the president is put there for 4 years, not for 3 years. So during this fourth year, it happened to come up, unfortunately, because I had great respect for Justice Ginsburg, but a vacancy happened to come up, and we picked somebody that's outstanding. She has been an absolute star, and I'm extremely proud of it. But again, plenty of time. I mean, there's plenty of time. We're going to do it before the election, but we also have much time after the election, but there's no reason to wait, because it's almost unanimous, it seems to me, certainly within the Republican Party, and frankly, most of the Democrats within closed rooms. I guarantee you that this is an outstanding person, and I'm using my fourth term. And you know, if you look at it, and if you put the shoe on the other foot, if they had this, they would do it 100%. So there's been 29 times when this has happened. All 29 times a president has done exactly what I've done.
Can I just, to the voters' point, I'll just say that in 2016 you were on another show, actually another morning show, and you were asked whether President Obama should nominate a Supreme Court Justice Merrick Garland, and you said, I think the Senate should wait until the next president and let the president pick. Now, that was 8 months before the election. This is 3 weeks before the election.
I have a lot of respect, by the way.
So you have changed your position on this.
I have a lot of respect for Judge Garland, I want to tell you that. But I'll tell you, the whole ball game changed when I saw the way they treated Justice Kavanaugh. I have never seen any human being, and I'm not just talking about Supreme Court, I have never seen a human being treated so badly with false accusations and everything else. I have never seen anything like it. And you know what? The truth is, Savannah, like it or not, the ball game changed a lot. There has never been anybody treated so badly as now Justice Kavanaugh.
You've mentioned that you would like to see Amy Coney Barrett confirmed to the Supreme Court in case any challenges come up in connection with the election.
Yeah.
Do you expect her to rule for you?
I think she'll have to make that decision. I don't think she has any conflict at all. You know, a Supreme Court judge does not have, I mean, they can make their own decision. And they actually have additional power to make that decision. It would be totally up to her. I would think that she would be able to rule either for me or against me. I don't see any conflict whatsoever. We have an election coming up. I think it's the most important election in the history of our country. If for any chance, and it probably won't, and I hope it doesn't ever get to the Supreme Court, but if it did, I would think that she would rule one way or the other. I would think so.
But for you, you think she would rule for you?
I have no idea.
I mean, of course she'll rule one way or the other, but...
Believe it or not, I never asked her about it. I never talked about it. I didn't talk about any of the obvious things that you could talk about. And I think a lot of people in my position might. But in speaking to a lot of very brilliant people and people that do this for a living, they say it's better not to talk. So I talked to her about life. I talked to her about the fact, would you like to do this? Are you willing to do this? Because it's a tremendous burden. The answer was yes. She's unbelievably well qualified, but I never spoke to her about these various questions.
Hey, NB.
Okay.
I 100% agree with what you said. There's a lot of politicking involved with with Supreme Court appointments, and I really don't fault the Republicans for like saying something 180 like 4 years ago, like they had like they say things like, oh well, we should leave the Supreme Court nomination for the next president. Well, that doesn't matter. I mean, Trump is right. Like,
to an extent, I would slightly disagree in that it's hypocritical on the part of the Republicans.
It is hypocritical.
But what I would say is like
politicians are always hypocritical.
Well, of course the politicians are always hypocritical, but more to the point, what I would think is like this was something that basically Obama just seemed to accept back then. I mean, there was no reason not to accept that. He could have pushed it forward anyways. Why wouldn't he have?
Well, the thing is that he didn't have the Senate. That was the major reason. Trump has the Senate right now, and he has the ability to get Barnett confirmed.
Yeah, that's easy to talk about, but I mean, like, that to me just kind of speaks of weak leadership. Obama really could have spun that into a thing. Obama really could have just spun it around. It's like, why are you not confirming her? Like, if you're listening to her and you've, sorry, not her, because we were talking about, Jesus, not Kavanaugh.
Trump.
No. Whoever Obama was appointing at that time. Garland. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Obama very could have easily pushed him forward and had them do their questioning, and they could have rejected it, and he could have very easily pushed it back as like, why are you rejecting him? You know? I mean, let's face it. It's Obama. It's the president. I don't care that it's Obama, actually. It's the president. The president controls the national discourse. Obama could have very easily just come out and asked this publicly, you know?
He could have. Well,
therefore, there would have been a lot of rumbling with the voters, and then a lot of those Republicans would have been forced to answer their own electorate.
Well, at that time, I mean, it was assumed that Hillary Clinton would be the successor.
Well, it was certainly assumed, but I mean, I guess that's the problem, isn't it?
That was the problem. That was the major problem, and that, like, the fact that he was complacent about the election, allowed that vacancy to be taken by Trump, and Trump was the one who ultimately appointed someone for that vacancy when Scalia died. So, I mean, was it Scalia or was it Breyer? I forget, but.
No, Scalia.
Scalia died, so.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I think Trump is right. He's absolutely right here. A president is voted into office to serve 4 years. And 4 years is from the time he is inaugurated to the time when the next term starts, right?
Yes.
So he has the leverage, he has the license to appoint someone and to push someone to confirmation before his term ends.
Not even the leverage or the license. In many ways, he has the duty to do it.
Well, yeah, he has the duty. Because there are cases, civil cases out there that do need to be adjudicated, right?
Yeah, this is not a matter of it being dependent on the election. There's plenty of cases that are going up to the Supreme Court all the time.
Well,
you really can't have a vacancy in the court.
But I guess to play devil's advocate, you have opponents saying, well, hey, wait, let's delay this process because there could be some pivotal cases that could affect generations of Americans in the future.
No, I know that's what
right?
I know that's what people say as an argument. I mean, personally, this is one of those things where I've had conversations with people, and mostly they judge me as being naive, and I can't necessarily argue against that, but at the same time, I've never really had a really good argument to convince me otherwise. I don't believe in this concept of the Supreme Court being as overly political as people seem to assume it is. It really comes across to me like when we're talking about judges, we are talking about like the most high-level people possible. And if there is some kind of unanimous agreement on them, then there are people who are going to be looking at this in the concept of being a judge. They're not going to be as political as like you and I would be. You know, you and I, Joe Blow on the street, right? Because you and I don't have any kind of legal training. These people have legal training. They are professionals.
Right.
They're looking at it in a different capacity.
Well, I mean, I guess I know, playing devil's advocate, someone could say, well, there could be judges who are more activists, right? They could try to...
we know for a fact that there are plenty of activist judges out there. Absolutely.
Right. So
there's no question about that. But I don't think I don't know if there's ever been an activist judge on the Supreme Court, because I think that's something that could be sniffed out and determined pretty easily and pretty quickly. I legitimately don't know of an activist judge. Now, I'm sure a lot of people would point out some judges and say, like, they are activists, but at the same time, I could look at it and I could read some of their decisions and whatnot. It's like, okay, I politically disagree with them, but they had legitimate reasons for making this decision. This didn't come apropos of nothing. This was justified. There is an explanation here. Just because I disagree with it doesn't mean that it is activism. Likewise, just because I agree with it doesn't mean that it's activism.
I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, I'm sure that there were people who had thought that the justices who had upheld Brown v. Board of Education were activists.
I'm sure a lot of people thought of it that way.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. And it is definitely a fine line to address, right? I like this is where I kind of get into the crosshairs of the right at times, where they see someone who's activist, I find someone who's just like, well, that's okay. I find them to be moderate, like, they're not being activists to my knowledge. I mean, the case of Obergefell, I think the reasoning was okay. I think that was fine. In trying to uphold same-sex marriages at the federal level, I think that was okay. Like, I don't think that was any sort of like activism in the Supreme Court. I mean, even I don't think so. Even Anthony Kennedy had like upheld Obergefell.
Yeah, no, here's the thing, is I really think that the problem is that if we're talking about activism, I think that that comes with some connotations in general layman speak, you know? That is assuming that this is completely divorced of rationale and proper adjudication. And it's just purely off of emotional responses. So when somebody makes an accusation of activism, they are assuming that somebody is coming to this decision not based off of any rational position that they can defend and justify. They're coming to it because it's just something that they personally believe. And I think the problem there is that that's what most of us would do. I know that that's what I would do because I'm not legally trained. I mean, I got my voter guide blue book in the mail, and I've tried to read it several times, and I don't understand law. So I've read through a lot of the proposed laws, and I don't really understand most of them at all. Because I don't think in that same way, and I assume most people are in that position. But there are people who are judges who become Supreme Court judges who are qualified and capable of reading it in that way, and who can make proper decisions in that capacity, and therefore, as long as they can justify it, and it's agreed upon by the legal establishment that they're not just pulling something out of their ass, and I guess I'm just going to have to appeal to authority here and trust that they know better than me, then it's not necessarily activism, it's a matter of differing opinions.
Well, I hope you don't become skilled in legalese, because I find that there you will not find greater scum and villainy than someone who specializes in the law.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I've met a couple of lawyers in my career, and they're not great to talk to. Only a few. So I don't know.
It's a whole completely disconnected way of thinking about the world. My apologies to any lawyers out there, but you guys are weird.
I'm sure
you're not human by the reckoning of everybody else.
Oh god. Well, like for me, like there are only so few Atticus Finches in the country. I think more of them are Lionel Hutz.
Dude, that's not even what I mean. Like, even Atticus Finch is somebody who's alien to me. It's like, at the same time, it's like, yeah, okay, like, you're morally correct, but, like, you're not even necessarily arguing that. You're still arguing this legally, and, like, this is divorced from reality, man.
Oh, yeah, okay. Fair point. Fair point.
Basically, common sense has no place in law. And I think most lawyers would readily admit that and say, yeah, that's the point. But your average person looking in from the outside with no understanding of it is just so confused.
Yeah, it's I'm hoping to the future that I'm hoping to the future something similar to like the future in like Back to the Future Part 2, where like they just ban lawyers altogether.
Well, I don't know about that. I think we need them.
I'm just kidding. We do need them for better or worse. They're like, they're like our garbage men, but worse.
Dude, no, that's actually a very good analogy. I think.
I respect garbage men.
No, I 100% respect garbage men. That's why I think it's a very good analogy. It is a job that most people can't do and won't do, but it is so vitally necessary that thank God that there are people who will do it.
They will. So, another point I would like to cover is that, a lot of this argument over the Supreme Court nomination is over time, right? Like, they're saying, like, well, like, you only have, like, 2 months left or 3 months left over your term. So you shouldn't be appointing you should be nominating a Supreme Court justice at this moment. You should leave it to the next president. Well, like, I think that's a terrible argument. Especially because one of our greatest Supreme Court justices, not just Supreme Court justice, but Chief Justices, not just one of the greatest. Actually, he's considered the greatest Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, John Marshall. He was appointed by John Adams in, I think, 1801, and John Marshall was actually confirmed about 1 or 2 months prior to Thomas Jefferson taking the office.
Holy shit. 1 or 2 months prior, so then...
Yes.
I mean, then we are literally talking post-election then, even in those days.
Post-election... So let me just look this up. So let me see when John Marshall's tenure had actually started. So his tenure as Chief Justice of the Supreme Court started in February 4th, 1801. And at that time, the inauguration of the president started in March. So we're talking about a month before Thomas Jefferson took office. A guy who got appointed by John Adams, who was the opponent to Thomas Jefferson in the 1800 election.
So he was the one who lost the election. Yeah.
Yeah, John Adams had lost the election. Thomas Jefferson was like, well, I won. So, but John Marshall was able to become Chief Justice, despite having been appointed and confirmed after the election. So, and he's considered the greatest Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. The most influential, actually. The most important case heard by the Supreme Court was Marbury versus Madison, which established judicial review. And
that's what I was going to ask. That's the one that fundamentally established the Supreme Court as being the Supreme Court as we understand it, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It established it was the final thing that would allow this, that would emphasize the separation of powers of the branches, really. The judicial branch was not dependent on either the legislature or the executive. It is its own thing, and John Marshall did that.
Damn.
Yep. And this is a guy who got confirmed a month before Thomas Jefferson. And Thomas Jefferson didn't like John Marshall. It's like, well, I guess I have to deal with this shit guy.
Asshole just raining in on my parade.
I know. Because, this is, yeah. Yeah, it's like, damn it. Like, what are some of the cases that, Thomas Jefferson, John Marshall. I don't know what his opinions were.
Marbury versus Madison. Wait, I'm sorry. Was that the one that you were talking about?
Oh, Thomas Jefferson, the author of the Declaration of Independence and our fourth president, saw John Marshall as a political threat. Political threat.
Oh boy, this is interesting. In terms of like the QAnon stuff with conspiracies and whatnot, John Marshall, he was directly involved in the Burr conspiracy trial.
Ah, interesting.
This was where, after leaving office, Aaron Burr traveled to the western United States, where he may have entertained plans to establish an independent republic from Mexican or American territories.
Interesting. Well, I mean, my point was that let's not let time be a precondition for when a justice should be appointed. Like, a president has the right to appoint a judge whenever during his term, whether if it's like 4 years before his term ends or a month. So
yeah.
I 100% agree with Trump. Whatever they said about Garland 4 years ago, that doesn't matter. The truth is that a president is allowed to appoint whomever, during his tenure.
Yeah, okay? Absolutely. And that's the thing is, like, I really want to say, like, I found that whole thing about that during Obama's administration to just be fucking stupid as well. I mean,
the Republicans talk about it. Yeah,
Obama should have appointed somebody. He should have gotten Garland through, as far as I'm concerned.
And he was pretty moderate.
To me, it just kind of speaks to like I've always wondered about that, but you're right. It was always the assumption that Hillary Clinton was going to win. So why did it matter? Why would you fight it? And that was why he didn't push it.
Sucks to be him. So yeah. Complacency. Yeah, just complacency. You can hear me? Can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello?
Oh shit.
Are
you there?
Can you hear me? Yeah, I'm here. Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Hello?
Fuck.
Hello?
Oh no, is this a reverse Jurassic Park? Did you fall asleep on me? Oh,
no.
I can't hear you at all.
I can hear you.
Oh, there you are. There you are.
Oh no.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Okay.
Shit.
Okay.
Fuck.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't fall. I didn't fall asleep. Okay.
No, god damn it. Okay.
I'm
No, I think it was perfectly recorded the entire time. That was entirely on my end. I think I've got it meant to be more muted if I pull out my headphone thing. My headphone slot is loose. I think I accidentally moved my arm across it and pulled it out a little bit.
Okay.
Fuck, okay. I'm sorry. I fucked it.
No worries. There's the magic of editing. So
yes, exactly.
Magic of editing. Okay. Do we have one last Trump video, or is that it?
No, that was actually the last one.
Okay, yeah. So I guess my thoughts are from the town halls. I think it was definitely a missed opportunity to have them speak to each other again. No, I definitely wanted them to like state their cases with each other. Usually town halls, like, they're not as like confrontational as like the first debates, right? They tend to speak to the crowd because most of the questions are lodged from the crowd, from the audience.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't like it that they had two separate town halls. For one thing, I did not know what to watch, so it was news to me that Trump was on NBC News I first watched the Biden town hall before I knew that there was a Trump town hall. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
But,
and then you're left in a position where, again, kind of the problem is that they're not responding to each other, and so there's not a debate going on.
There isn't.
I really firmly believe this. This to me, it was not a meme, a joke, or anything like that. I legitimately do think that the concept of Joe Rogan moderating like a 6-hour conversation with the two of them would have been the best possible thing we could have gotten.
No, I think that too. I think a lot of Americans want a strong sense of honesty and authenticity from their candidates. And Joe Rogan would be able to pull that out from both Biden and Trump. I believe so.
I firmly believe so.
He just has a way of
because
disarming his interviewees.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it would have been a very simple thing. It would have been, in that case, it would have been a conversation as opposed to a debate. And so Joe Rogan would have, one, been able to rein in Trump, because I do believe in the debate Trump was a bit more aggressive than he necessarily needed to be, but I mean, like, I guess it was appropriate for the debate format. And then Joe Rogan could have also forced both of those guys to actually answer questions that are being raised.
Right.
As opposed to just running out the clock and waiting for the next question to be asked, you know?
Maybe this is why Trump wanted to interrupt him in the first debate. Like, okay, like, you gotta stop, Biden. You gotta stop. Like, you gotta answer the question. Like, you have to answer the question.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. Probably in the first debate, Biden would have like talked endlessly had not Trump interrupted him.
Well, we kind of saw that with the first question that we saw with Biden, going back way to the beginning of this.
Yep. So I'm like, maybe Trump was onto something.
It's possible.
But yeah. I have nothing else to say about the town halls. Do you have anything else to cover?
No, we've covered the clips that we wanted to see. So I think that might be it for us.
Okay. So do you want to end this episode? You're usually the person that ends it.
Certainly I can do that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have shared our thoughts and imparted some ideas on the current state of politics by reviewing a couple of town halls. Things will certainly go to hell regardless, but remember, don't blame us. We are voting for Kodos.
We'll see you next time.